Hey, peace to the family, man. It's Brother Garfield, and we're gonna have a conversation today about what are you doing for the community. A lot of people like to talk and come in the community, cause problems, do whatever, and say, I do this, I do that. But what are you really doing for the community? Are you helping your brothers and sisters? But before you even try to help the community, how are you? What are you doing for yourself? And just for the record, we got Chuck Morgan coming up this weekend. Gotta check him out. We got David Litwa coming up. We got my brother tonight. This is what I'm gonna play right now. We got Shakara tomorrow. All right. If you missed it, last Friday we had Dr. Rochelle Shalomi Hen, The Writing of the Gods. And yesterday we had the Malcolm X show here in the pros and the cons from both sides having a dialogue. All right. But today, my brother, I mean, I don't want to mispronounce the brother's name, but it's Ahneeahm Ben Khazriel. What are you doing for the community? All right. From a Hebraic perspective, check my brother out, man. He's pretty deep, brother. Check him out.
Hey, peace and love. This is Brother Garfield. Of course, this is the 20 for 20 Scholars for the month of February, our annual event. This is the third year of me doing this, and you guys know my history, man. I brought some of the best on the panel, and I think this brother, who I'm about to introduce, is one of the best out there when it comes to African Hebrew Israelites and their history globally and locally. So I would like to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, to my brother, Ahneeahm, and I hope I pronounced it right. Ahneeahm.
There you go.
All right, there you go. I got it. Can't talk to me now.
There you go. You ready to go international now? Once you get that language piece, you'll be good.
It's over. All right. So let me say this. You're somebody who I've interacted with for years. How is it, like 8 years? We've been interacting on Facebook. And I always liked your demeanor. I always liked how you present information. I'm a big admirer of yours. And I think you have a lot to offer us in the unification, not only of Israelites, but of African people in the diaspora. I think you have the capability to be one of the pieces, one of the puzzles that we could put together to make that happen. And today, I would like for you to basically break down the global impact of African Hebrew Israelites today. But generally, I know you're going to give a history. So the floor is yours, brother, whenever you want to start, or if you want to talk about something before you get into that.
All right, no, we could just dive right in. And first of all, I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate the kind words and for inviting me onto your platform. I feel like what I would like to do today is to, first of all, give all honor, praise, and thanks to the Most High for allowing for us to have this special opportunity to share these precious moments together. And then also to all of those that have sacrificed their lives, gave their time, energy, and commitment to the upliftment of our people. You know, spiritual leader of my community, Ben Ami, all of the princes, ministers, all those struggling for righteousness' sake on the planet today. I greet you all in peace. Shalom, shalom. Right. And with that being said, I feel like what would be appropriate is to begin with a sort of a historical recap, because I'm sure for your audience, they've heard the term Hebrew Israelite before. It's not the first time they've heard the term. It's actually in the title of your book, you know, but quite often, when people talk about the Hebrew Israelites, they're dealing primarily with a theological kind of academic controversy, you know, or possibly some social issues, you know, taking place in the United States. But what I'd like to do today is present a much broader perspective on some of the global dimensions of the African Hebrew Israelite movement that actually began in 1967 when we left America. So when I say movement, I'm referring to the actual movement, you know, of those that left America in 1967 under the leadership of a young man named Ben Ami. Fundamentally, we know that the concept, the core idea of the Hebraic worldview is one that places an emphasis on, you know, land, language, and culture, institutions, and self-government. All throughout the scriptures, as a matter of fact, you find that is one of the core principles, you know, the idea that the people have a land, you know, and that when they're dispossessed from that land, there's a captivity that takes place, there's some kind of alienation, some kind of a weakening that takes place. And so it's this constant struggle, you know, to restore the lost sovereignty or ability to self-determine, which is woven into the narrative of the Hebrew scriptures. So principles like cultural restoration, political engagement, diplomacy, economics, agriculture, you find these very practical, life-oriented scriptures all throughout the text. You know, so while many people focus on the religious, theological, metaphysical dimension, underneath that, we see a very baseline understanding of war, military science, legal affairs, and things of that nature, relationships, family, dysfunctional families, intergenerational trauma, all of these realities are reflected in the tradition. And as we study and extract key principles out of that, one of the things we realize is that there's a distinct difference, between redemption and religion, even in the ancient sense of the terms. With the idea of religion is fundamentally a set of beliefs. And when most people talk about, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm agnostic, I'm an atheist. They're talking about a set of beliefs, a set of beliefs that fundamentally give insight into their worldview pertaining to various metaphysical questions. What are the answers to these questions that they've come up with? Such as, God's historical perspectives, so on and so forth. That's the religious paradigm. It's centered around a set of beliefs. But when you deal with redemption, it's focused on an actual reality. When you see the idea of being in a terrible situation and needing to be extricated from that situation, finding out what's the reason why you're in it and how to improve the situation. So we see a very distinct difference between the religious mentality that we were given, via Eurocentric theological institutions and the actual redemptive purpose of the scriptures. So when we take that consciousness into our era today, we realize that it's not enough to focus on changing people's beliefs if the changing of those beliefs isn't connected to the changing of their thought process, their behavior, their understanding of the world around them, and what they're supposed to do with that information. Because at the end of the day, if the information is not applied in a practical way to produce a practical result, then it's useless, or it can even become counterproductive if we begin to think that it is a sufficient substitute for, righteous living, so to speak. And so looking at the condition of Black people today, one of the key teachings that our spiritual leader, Ben-Ami, would give us over the years is that we can compare our situation today to a great harvest. It's a great harvest. And, the old saying, you reap what you sow, you're going to receive based on what you put out. Well, then what we're experiencing today is a great harvest. All over this planet, we are reaping the results of the decisions that our leaders have made. We're reaping the results. We are inheriting the fruit of the concepts and ideologies and perspectives and doctrines and systems that we've been under the influence of. So when we look at this harvest, when we look at this fruit, when we critically examine the direction that we've been going and where it has led us and where it has left us, it causes for us to wonder, do we want to continue to plant the same seeds? Or should we begin to plant new seeds to produce a better harvest for future generations? So when we left America in 1967, that was the spirit that we were motivated by, realizing that there is a need for us to be able to detoxify our minds from the clutter, the intellectual, educational clutter and philosophies and ideologies that had dominated us here in the United States, so that we can actually reconnect with our ancestral lands, so that we can begin to rebuild our own systems and institutions for self-government, is that we can begin to have a new kind of global impact relative to building a new world, instead of what African Americans have been doing for so long, which is using their talent, their creativity, their ingenuity, their brilliance to help build and expand the interests of the system that has enslaved them. And so there was this desire for a new direction that Ben-Ami decided to lead us on, and in so doing, he helped open up a new paradigm in terms of global engagement of our people with the world. And that's exactly what I would like to give a little bit of insight into during this presentation. So what I would like to do is take a moment to share a few slides, or share a few, websites online that kind of give some insight into this dynamic. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Hey, in the meantime, as far as where you are, do you live in the United States or do you live over in Israel today?
Oh, I actually live right here in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't even really properly introduce myself. Maybe I should do that now before I start. So my name is Ahneeahm Ben Khazriel. I'm a part of the executive committee for an organization named Youth Aiding Humanity Incorporated. We're an educational nonprofit organization that operates here in Atlanta and has partner organizations in Ghana and some other countries. What we focus on fundamentally is helping to develop young leaders. So we do so through the different educational programs and projects that we offer. Right now, our flagship program here in Atlanta is called Kinder Gardens Academy, and it's something I'll be getting into a little bit more as we move forward. But we also have a partnership with a school in Ghana that we're helping to develop, an African holistic school that's connected to us out here in the diaspora. My background is one where I came into the community, first of all, as a teenager. around, I think I was around 17, 18 when I first started coming around. I became a student in the School of the Prophets Institute, and an apprentice under the teacher at that time, one of the top students. I continued on while others began to drop off, to the point where, as a research assistant and as an apprentice and understudy, when my instructor passed, I was selected to continue on in his stead as the main instructor. And that's when I got my first real experience, as a teacher. I was groomed, so to speak, from a young age to teach based on my kind of educational skill set. From that base in the School of the Prophets Institute, and absorbing this curriculum and this concept of Hebraic scholarship, I was able to ultimately secure a position at Clark Atlanta University, where I was functioning as a teaching assistant, right? But I was actually teaching a lot of the courses. The professor took a liking to me and groomed me to help teach at the university level. And he helped refine my understanding of curricular design and methods of historical inquiry, and how to address different scholarly issues. So I taught for Clark Atlanta University as a teaching assistant. So I was kind of tag teaming with the main professor, who was the head of the Department of Philosophy and Religion. I did that for 2 years. Then I ran a grant-funded program for Black boys at Booker T. Washington High School and Georgia State University. It was called the African American Male Initiative. And it was based on leadership development and career planning and relationships and psychology, mental health, a lot of those things that I'm very passionate about in terms of the holistic development of young men. And we had some really powerful sessions that I always reflect on when I think about it. From there, that's when I decided to engage with the development of our own educational nonprofit organization, instead of simply working with others that already existed or just working inside of the school system. That's when we launched Youth Aiding Humanity. And I've traveled around the world. I've been to Israel multiple times. I've been to South Africa twice. I've been to Kenya. I'm planning another trip to Israel and Egypt this May. I'll be leading a tour to Egypt. We're going to be going and checking out the pyramids. I got a whole curriculum lined out for how we're going to cover this need to bridge the gap.
How long for that trip? How long is that trip going to be, going to Egypt?
It's going to be about there's two different things that will be happening, because in Israel, we have New World Passover celebration, which is an annual celebration of our exodus out of America. So we're going to be celebrating that, and there's going to be a lot of festivities and a lot of travels throughout the land of Israel during that time. And right now I'm working with the staff up there to solidify the best time slot to actually get over to Egypt. And it's going to be at least 5 days solid in Egypt. We're going to be going down south. We're going to be going up north to Alexandria and visiting a lot of different sites to help, again, create a broader perspective on this link between Africa and Israel. Because fundamentally, that's a part of the core of where my scholarly focus has been. Decolonizing the Bible and moving away from the Eurocentric perceptions and attitudes that have been perpetuated through Eurocentric theology. And by once we remove the binders and the blinders of Eurocentric theology and Eurocentric academic perspectives on the Bible, we're able to re-engage the text in its indigenous form and also gain a greater appreciation for other indigenous traditions that all relate to our ability to restore, African consciousness at this time. So that trip is going to be a part of that overall agenda. And that overall agenda, again, you can see, as you mentioned in the opening, that it's much more focused on unification. It's much more focused on seeing the common threads that are woven throughout these various traditions, so we can ultimately align with a higher purpose and a higher vision. So, like, for example, the program that we run out here in Atlanta it's not a denominational. It's not a Hebrew Israelite organization that doesn't work with other types of organizations. We're all about empowering and uplifting and inspiring our community. So that's what we do. And anybody who shares that vision and value system, we can work together. All right. And I feel like that's an important consideration. Is my screen still shared?
There you go, brother. It's all yours.
All right. So that's an important consideration, because this is the kind of mentality that was instilled within me. Wait. What do you see right now on your screen?
I see the Institute. You got the whole page to yourself. The Institute for Cultural Diplomacy.
Right, because this is the mentality that was instilled within me by my teachers, my elders, my mentors, etc. I'm showing you a page right now from a platform that's entitled the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. Right, the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy is based out of Berlin, Germany, and it's a global platform for networking among various heads of state, international activists, scholars, educators, etc. from around the world. So as you see the page, you can see the diversity and the kind of caliber of the topics that they're engaging with. The World Forum on Democracy and Peace, the annual World News Media Forum 2023, etc. This platform is one that we've built a great relationship with over the years. And one of the things that actually happened was they developed an African Affairs department that they call Experience Africa, which I just transitioned to here. And this is the subsection of the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, which focuses on the African continent. And as you go through their page relative to the African continent, they have a section here on the right entitled the African Diaspora. When we click that, this is where it gets interesting. The African Diaspora page for this international symposium and conglomerate of various institutions working together to promote culturally rooted solutions to help build a better world. When you go to their page on Experience Africa, right, you see on the left-hand column, after discussing the Assembly of the African Union, they have a tab for the African Diaspora. And underneath that, they have the African Hebrew Israelites. So I said today I want to discuss the global impact of the African Hebrew Israelites. And here on the ICD's website, we see some insight into what that has been. And although this page has not been updated for quite some time, it's still very relevant and useful for today. And so, long story short, to begin, remember our community left America, led by His Excellency Ben-Ami in 1967. At first, we traveled to Liberia, West Africa, to go through this process of detoxifying our minds. Whether or not we like to admit it, we as Africans in the Western Hemisphere have been westernized, regardless of what our religious belief is or our political philosophy, our economic approach. We've still been westernized just in terms of our norms of what it even means to be a human, because we live in these artificial environments, these cities, which have kind of detached us from nature in a way that is uncommon or unparalleled in all of history. So what we needed to do was actually restore our original African consciousness by leaving the boundaries of this system and going back into nature, and that was our Liberia experience. And then from there, we moved into America or into Israel, where we built a platform for a new community. And that's what this website is championing. That's what it's highlighting. So it says here, it has a statement that was initially issued by the Israeli government's Ministry of Foreign Affairs back in 2006, when they said a phenomenon in a land full of phenomenon is the story of the Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona, Israel. Labeled over the years as the Black Hebrews, community members began arriving in Israel in 1969. Our first arrivals were actually in 1968. We'll let that slide. Led by Ben-Ami Ben Israel, that came from the United States via Liberia, stating that they are descendants of the tribe of Judah. In the nearly 40 years since, the community has moved from being unknown to becoming Kibbutz Shomrei HaShalom, one of the largest urban kibbutzim in Israel. They presently number about 2,000, it's close to 4,000 or 5,000 now, with additional families in Arad, Mitzpe Ramon, and the Tiberias areas. So I don't want to get too much into philosophical components today. We're going to focus on the projects of the African Hebrew Israelites going up to the time that this website was updated. So when we, the first period of time that we were in Israel, we were having to deal with a lot of political turmoil and legal controversy with the Israeli government pertaining to our status and identity in the land. So we had to go through several decades of literally just fighting that fight and working to secure our position in the land. As we secured that position, we eventually emerged to the point where we had the capacity to begin influencing and impacting and spreading our vision around the world. And in order to help facilitate that, we established something called the African Hebrew Development Agency. The African Hebrew Development Agency is a non-governmental organization which operates across Africa and is organized by the African Hebrew Israelite community of Dimona, Israel. We specialize in providing technical assistance, training, and consultancy in essential areas of human development and capacity building, such as health, agriculture, rural development, environmental maintenance, and related fields. I want all of your listeners to pay close attention to the fact that it doesn't mention religion and philosophy, right? Because, as Prince Emmanuel, who's located right here on the left, once told me, whatever your religious philosophy is, we want you to be healthy so you can believe in it and practice it. But if you're not healthy, if your lifestyle is self-destructive, and as you see throughout Africa, the rates of non-communicable diseases and various other lifestyle-related ailments are plaguing the people, or even sanitation-related issues. For us to be arguing about gods while this is the nature of our relationship to reality indicates how far away from reality religion has taken us. And so there's a need to, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, move away from the religious psychology, which is disconnected from reality, and get back involved in a cultural perspective, which engages the core issues that affect our lives today. And so as we've moved throughout the African continent, it's not that we haven't also been teaching and engaging in various educational and scholarly things. It's just that our priorities are pretty clear in terms of protecting and sustaining the life of the people, because for us, that's what the redemptive perspective is about. Religion, just you believe in something else and then hopefully the benefits pay off after you die. But redemption actually practically transforms the condition of the people as they live. And whether you're talking about David defeating Goliath or Moses and the Israelites in the Exodus or any of these different stories in the Bible, none of the payoff of the work that they were doing occurred after the people died. All of the payoff was while they were alive. Whether it was talking about health, you read the individual in the New Testament was a healer, right? The healing occurred while people was alive. You know, if you're going into great military leaders or political leaders or heads of state or prophets, they were all trying to transform the condition, the material conditions of the people on the planet. And in our generation, we do that today through the development of institutions, right? Institutions that can align with the objective of transforming our material condition. And so this is the African Hebrew Development Agency is one of several different institutions that we've done or that we've created in order to facilitate that agenda. We've been operating in Ghana since 1995, and we've taken part of several vital projects. And just briefly in bullet point form, again, this is very outdated because we've done a lot since 2006, but just to give a sort of a sample or some insight into the type of work we've been doing in Africa. In 1995, we sponsored a joint medical and dental delegation to Ghana, providing free treatment and services in both rural and urban areas. In 1997, we began the digging of water wells in the Volta region of Ghana. In 1998, we sponsored the production and distribution of anti-smoking campaign materials to senior secondary school children. Also in 1998, we began training in organic farming and milling techniques, right? With the establishing of rice and flour mills in the Volta region. And that's very important. A mill is similar like to a factory. It's a processing center for rice. And when we moved away from just doing, what you can see here is that many of these programs, they involve capacity. The digging of water wells is not an easy thing, right? And I'm gonna go more into the story behind that, just so you all can get a sense of the kind of vision that's behind the movement that we've launched and how it's much different than what people normally think of when they hear the term, Hebrew Israelite. Hebrew Israelite, the term is more connected to a different kind of genre than what we're talking about. So when we mention the African Hebrew Israelites, we're talking specifically about that group that left America, went back to Africa and began doing this type of work. But when you see the mention of digging of water wells and training in organic farming and milling techniques while establishing rice and flour mills, right? And we also established a food processing factory. All of that means that we're building factories because, as Dr. Amos Wilson once said, we as Black people have to shift our mentality from thinking as consumers to thinking as producers. And shifting that thought process from consuming, like constantly buying from other people and receiving from other people, to now thinking about producing means we need to learn how to build institutions, how to create factories, how to create mills, so that we can actually take advantage of all of the incredible resources that exist underneath our own feet. But the mentality that we developed, especially during slavery, is one that is now averse to the hard work of building from scratch and doing for self. And so this is a part of the core emphasis, the core message of what it means for us to even identify as a Hebrew, because that's one of the core principles that, again, that you find all throughout the scriptures. So the training that we launched in organic farming and milling techniques, these things was rooted in our experience in Israel as we've developed our own system for what we call divine organic agriculture. And we use the term divine because of a lot of things that are ungodly that are still perpetuated under the name of organic agriculture. But divine organic agriculture and understanding this essential nature of the relationship between humanity and the land, and how the land is the basis for our development. It's so significant. The soil, the plant life that comes from the ground is so significant for our well-being that metaphorically in the book of Genesis, it actually says that we were created from it. That we're physically created from the soil itself. So obviously soil is always going to be very essential. This is the spiritual basis for the idea of the earth as our mother, because we came from her womb, and you need to take care of your mother as she takes care of you, And so this concept of that land, matter of fact, in the Hebrew language, the word for earth, because earth is like a Greek goddess, but the word for the earth in Hebrew is Adamah, and in English in Hebrew it's Adamah, which is feminine, and the name for the original man is Adam. The name for human is Adam, because Adam came from Adamah. So this concept of a sacred relationship or a sacred synergy between people and the land is a part of the core emphasis of the Hebraic worldview ever since Genesis, ever since the very beginning of the narrative. And so the reason why that's important is because even in Ghana, you know, you have the idea of Asaseya, you know, Mother Earth. And so Ima Adama in Hebrew thought would be our Mother Earth concept, Asaseya, but both cultures recognize the fact that the earth is very important. Now, how do we change the nature of our relationship to the earth? Because the colonizers have come in and they're the ones who have been exploiting and capitalizing off of the earth in a very hostile manner. And we have to change the way that we see our relationship to nature and then change the way that we build in harmony with nature. And that's how we access the ultimate benefit. So the trainings that we've offered over the years, again, not just in Ghana, but literally throughout the continent, around the world, even out here in the States, as we'll go into soon, and especially based in our headquarters in Israel, that training has all been focused on restoring that sacred relationship between humanity and the soil, knowing that that's also the basis for all of our long-term economic development, our food security, and ultimately our ability to sustain ourselves on this planet. And so that training is essential. The conducting of nutritional seminars and the designing of school feeding programs was all the way back in 2002. We've been training in our own naturally cultivated organic soybean cultivation in the northern region of Ghana. And then in 2006, we launched something called the Regenerative Health and Nutrition Program in Ghana. In other countries, we've launched and used biogas digesters to provide electricity, such as in rural Liberia. We had a food security and agriculture project in Kenya, and so much more has evolved from here. And I'm only using this website as a sort of a snapshot insight into the kind of international projects that have been launched, because it's essential that we as a people, regardless of the name of your theological discipline or school of thought, it's essential that we understand the core, basic, material foundation for what it means to stay alive on the planet. Because then if we can do that, then we can then move on to like more interesting conversations and philosophical discussions about the kind of things that me and Garfield like to talk about. But if we're not staying alive on the planet, if we're not securing our existence, then it really doesn't matter, what we believe, unless of course what you believe is that all the benefits come after you die, which is not biblical. So I want to play a brief clip. What I want to do, I want to go back and establish a little bit more about the nature of our community itself, like the headquarters of where we come from. The community in Israel, if I can, are you still there, by the way? I want to make sure I'm still live.
Yeah, I'm right here, my brother.
Our community in Israel is based on principles of holistic living and natural lifestyles. I think I have a slide up here somewhere.
Hey, before you move any forward, so you're saying there's a connection with Kenya and Israel, of course, here in Georgia and Chicago. Where else in Africa? Is there also South Africa? Where else?
Oh, absolutely. Remember, I've been to South Africa twice. We have 9 different sub-jurisdictions in South Africa. Many of them many great distances apart. Like it's roughly 14 hours from Durban to Johannesburg. So we have multiple communal centers in South Africa. We've been very active in Zimbabwe over the years, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In Zambia, we have our newest jurisdiction in Africa. Our newest community is based in Zambia, which is a little bit north of South Africa. Obviously, Ghana. Obviously, we still have people in Liberia. We've built very large-scale operations in Benin, which is in West Africa near Togo. In Kenya, so Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya are the areas where we have the largest presence. Zambia is trying to catch up. It's on the last board. Tanzania, there's a lot of activity and motion in Tanzania. Agriculturally oriented, and I'm going to show you, like, the reason I'm doing this whole internet curation is I actually want to show you better than I can tell you some of the substance of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Kenya, Tanzania, the Caribbean islands. We have a major project in Belize. I visited Belize last year and saw some of the great works that we're doing there. And so basically the idea has been, we're going to leave America, go to Israel, establish our base of operations. And from this community, we're going to apply the principles that we think Black people need to follow, or that humanity needs to follow. And by applying these principles, we're going to see whether or not they work. And if they work, we're going to package them and promote them around the world as viable alternatives to the current direction that we've been led or misled down, in the past. And so we needed to come to a newer understanding of, for example, how does one sustain their physical health, their physical body? Because America has popularized a very degenerative lifestyle, a lifestyle where the daily and seasonal living patterns of the people are self-destructive, from the food that they eat to the amount of TV that they watch, the amount of time that they spend indoors, the way that they build their relationships, the way that they treat their women, the way that they raise their children. Like, all of this stuff has become very degenerative. And that degeneration is reflected in the statistics, the marriage statistics, the hypertension and high blood pressure statistics. All of that shows that we're clearly moving in a bad direction. So we wanted to build a community which represents the practical application of this vision for a new direction, and that's what we did. So areas like culture became very important. Upwards of 80% of the clothes that we make, we want it to be stuff that we manufacture ourselves. So we had to build our own clothing manufacturing, facilities, and actually popularize the idea of wearing our own clothes. Again, shifting from the mentality of thinking as consumers and becoming producers again. And culture obviously involves music, it involves lifestyle, it involves a lot of subcomponents like relationships and family dynamics. So we needed to create our own system for marriage. How do we go through the courtship, dating, marriage process? Do we even want to call it dating? Do we want to continue on with what we had in America, or do we need a new vision of how to do it? So we have to establish our own priesthood, which could oversee our own marriage processes. That's in harmony with our values and our vision. Because what we've been doing in America is simply applying the values and vision of somebody else. And the results have been devastating. The harvest has been poisonous. So we needed to plant new seeds. So the cultural dimension is a major area that we focused a lot of our time and energy on. The dedication. The word chanok in Hebrew is to dedicate. And that's the word that more accurately refers to what we see education as. Education is really about dedicating people to the principles that sustain life, the principles that support their families, the principles that uphold their community and build the world that they live in. To be educated is to be dedicated to a set of values. And so we developed our own dedication system or education system that we could use in order to build the kind of world that we want. Because remember, the state of the world today, all over this planet, is the product of the well-educated minds who run it. And the state of the world is therefore a reflection of the kind of education that people have been receiving. And so we obviously need a new kind of education to go a different direction. And again, that's what we began to establish the basis for in Israel. We've already mentioned quite a bit about holistic health and organic agriculture. But one thing that I want to point out here is that these key components, culture, education, health, agriculture, and the other ones that are not mentioned, such as like diplomacy and political science, these components were all necessary for us because coming into Israel, we were placed into a situation politically with the government where we, in the beginning stages, were denied access to many of the government's institutions, right? Like the hospitals and things of that nature. They wouldn't recognize marriages. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do that. Our children couldn't go to their schools. And so it created a situation where not only did we want to create our own sense of self-sufficiency and our own communal operations, we didn't have a choice. So we had to create our own medical infrastructure. We had to develop our own midwifery system where and doulas and those women and that platform, which would support pregnant women through the prenatal, postnatal childbirthing experience and the life of the child. And obviously also support the men in the type of transition into fatherhood that's required. So when you leave a system, when you just leave it and say, I don't want to even be inside the system that I'm in anymore, then you realize that system provided so many things for you that you took for granted. Now you have to take your destiny into your own hands and do for self. And so that's what we began doing in the land of Israel. And after years of experimenting with these teachings, and obviously it wasn't like everything was just perfect, but we came out with a lot of major successes, major breakthroughs that testified to the wisdom of the teachings that Ben-Ami was giving us and the practical application of the things that we are extracting from the scriptures, from our studies of science and biology, from our understanding of politics and history. As we applied those things to our community, we broke through and not only transformed the political situation that we had in the land, but also began to influence the world in some of the manners that I had just recently described. So that's a very, very crucial platform to understand who we are as a community. It's not simply like, it's a bunch of people who sit around reading the Bible all day. There's a very practical, life-oriented approach to social development that we historically take. And since you mentioned Kenya, hopefully this link is active. It takes us to the website for the project that we launched in Kenya, which is the Organic Farmers Kit. We partnered with one of the largest distributors of agricultural technology in East Africa, a company named Ahneeahm. And we had, remember, developed this whole approach to organic agriculture in Israel. This is the head of our Ministry of Divine Agriculture here, Prince Yadiel, accompanied by Prince Emmanuel. And we developed this system of divine organic agriculture. Remember, Israel is often described as a desert, but really it's a semi-arid region. It's not an area that is noted for its high levels of agricultural productivity, right? Naturally, because it's the region. It's an extension of the Sahara across the Red Sea. But the wisdom of the people of the land is that we can develop strategies for optimizing the land's ability to produce. And that's exactly what we've done in Israel. We've created systems of agricultural self-sufficiency and productivity that make it very, very valuable, especially in parts of Africa that are suffering from famine and drought. So we have the vision and the know-how on a scientific level to create mechanisms to promote organic agriculture on an international scale. But we needed to forge partnerships with other institutions that have the technological and economic base, and so our partnership with Ahneeahm allowed for us to do that. And basically what we've done is we've created a system that offers farmers training and management. We do organic consultations. We do seminars on this whole link between the soil and the soul. We get involved in sustainable building techniques and strategies for local communities. But the major basis of the partnership was that we could develop these greenhouse and open field kits. Anybody who knows anything about the East African landscape, even going back to biblical times, right? Because the Bible fundamentally takes place in East Africa from an ecological perspective. One of the major things that they're affected by is droughts, affected by famines and droughts. You read about famines in the Bible, right? Abraham and them, they're affected because there's a famine, so they got to migrate to somewhere where there's food, right? The sun is scorching, all the plants are dying up. What are we gonna eat? That's the question. Kenya is a part of that same ecological system on the planet. However, in ancient times, when there were droughts and famines, just like you read in the Bible, people would simply migrate to areas where there was food. It was not a complicated situation. It was, there's no food over here. Let's go to where the food is at. So when you see that story of Joseph and them going in, that's consistent with a lot of African history. But in the modern era, you got passports and visa issues and roads and all these complicated legal situations, which makes it much more tough to simply pack up and go like people used to do back in the day. You also have multinational corporations like Coca-Cola and Nestle and these other guys who they move into regions in what they call the third world and occupy turf. They take land, they quarter it off for themselves. And that might be the land that produces the most food. And then all they produce is cash crops to sell at a profit. Or like Coca-Cola will go take a river in India or a lake in India, suck all the water out, put it inside of Coca-Cola bottles, sell the Coca-Cola overseas while people in that area are struggling for access to water. Struggling for access to water because people overseas need to drink Coca-Cola inside of bottles with water that came from India. And so these multinationals have posed major problems to local self-sufficiency in Africa. So what can we do, practically speaking? This is the mind of enemy. What can we do, practically speaking, to help offset these types of crises? We need to figure out a way to enhance local self-sufficiency so that we can create plots that grow food despite whatever's happening ecologically or politically and economically. And the partnership with Ahneeahm allowed for us to do that. So we developed a system. And we actually got, I think, $30,000 from USAID to help develop this system as a part of the African Diaspora Marketplace fundraising campaign. But we developed a system where basically you have organic inputs. Ahneeahm had the technology, but we developed the organic science of how to build a locally self-sufficient agricultural system right there in East Africa that doesn't use harmful pesticides, unnatural chemicals, and all of these other biocidal weapons that were developed in Germany and the United States and other places to wage war against the earth in the name of increasing profit. We don't want to participate in that system of industrial agriculture, but we do want to get involved in a system of divine agriculture or organic agriculture that's in harmony with the earth and doesn't wage war against it through the dangerous chemicals that are used. And so that system is what we established. It involves drip irrigation, which is a more efficient way to use water. Obviously, we have the greenhouse, this is a greenhouse, and it basically creates an internal closed ecosystem that allows for you to grow even when the climate changes around it. Because inside of that house, you can still have a lot of productivity based on the way that the science of it works, which we don't need to go into now. And if you zoom in, you see these little lines here, and this is the drip irrigation system. You know, you might wonder, why is that even important? What's the drip irrigation system, and why do the Hebrews care about this kind of stuff? Well, if you've ever been in a yard, I don't know if it's the same in London or the UK, but out here in America, I've always grown up seeing sprinklers. Right, Darfield? You see sprinklers that just sprinkle water?
Waters, right. On a timer. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sprays water everywhere. That's wasting water. There's water going on the sidewalk, there's water going on the driveway, there's water going up against the house. The children are running around playing in the water, right? That's wasting water. For a plant to grow, the only part that needs water is the base of the stem of the plant. That's the area where the roots are going to draw the nourishment from. You don't need to spray water on the leaves of the plant and the trunk of the tree. It's so wasteful. So drip system irrigation technology was developed in Israel. And what it is you have an elevated water tank, and the pressure of the water goes down into this drip system where it's like a tube with holes in it. And water just drips into the holes and allocates just enough to cause the plants to grow. And this is a survival technology in East Africa. Because if you live far away from a source of water and it doesn't rain for X amount of time, you are out of luck. But by developing water catchment systems and having a drip irrigation system and all of this stuff, we're able to revolutionize the way that food security is ensured, in Africa. And that's one of the projects that we're very proud of, and that we're still continuing on to this day. In fact, some of my friends here from the United States just recently moved to Kenya to continue supporting this initiative. And in addition to that, the plant inputs, Prince Yadiel actually developed the science for organic plant inputs that go into the soil to help deal with stuff like pests and other things. Sister Ruchama over here is the office manager. It's the Hebrew sister inside of our community. And then we have Amin. He came from Antigua. Right? He's actually one of our greater performing artists in the community as well, with a reggae kind of flavor. But he moved to Kenya to help run this program as the general manager. And so you can see that it's us working also in conjunction with the indigenous people of the land to create working models for sustainable development throughout Africa that we make available there. So what I would like to do, I've kind of given a bit of an overview or snapshot, but I think it would be good for you all to hear the voice of Ben-Ami as he was in Ghana in 1994. And I'm gonna play a clip actually, which can be found on our Instagram page for my nonprofit organization, or for a program that our organization launches called Kindergartens. And I'm just gonna play a clip of a class that I taught recently where we explain these principles. Basically, back in 1994, Ben-Ami had left Israel. He was touring throughout the United States and Ghana. While he was in Ghana, there was a huge convention, a big Savior's Day conference, where he was one of the speakers there. The president of Ghana was also there, President Jerry Rawlings. And he spoke about the fact that in the rural areas, in certain communities in Ghana, the water quality is inferior to the drinking water in the capital city. And he was lamenting this crisis with development because, again, there's this issue with water. Now, I know for most people in America, we don't really think about water because, again, like I said in the beginning, we've developed this westernized, modernized mentality where you just turn on the faucet, and water comes out. And that's the end of the story. But if we go back during biblical times, the people thought a lot about water. Water was integral to the rise of civilization and the sustenance of communities. You even read in the Bible about Abraham drilling 7 wells. The area in Israel called Beersheba. Beersheba literally means the 7 wells. It's the area where Abraham dug what? Wells that access underground water reservoirs that could help nourish the people in the land. And so that consciousness about water, about access to vital resources, is something that the American mentality doesn't really think about as much, because so much of our stuff is provided to us by the government. But as we transformed our mentality to go back into Africa and build from the ground up, we needed to start thinking about these things. So when Ben-Ami heard, right, and remember, this is in 1994, when he heard the president say that about the condition of the water in Africa, in Ghana in particular, this is what he said in response.
I don't think it's playing, beloved.
Oh, you can't hear anything?
No,
Oh man, you should have told me at the beginning. I would have stopped playing. You've been talking the whole time. Basically, you can see the video though, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, we don't need to play the video. You can go to our Kindergartens Academy Instagram page to watch it yourself, but you can see the size of the audience that was there. What Ben-Ami said was that when he heard the condition of the people who were suffering because of a lack of access to water, what he did was he said, I'll go on record right now during this conference that the African Hebrew community is going to drill 7 clean water wells throughout the interior of the country of Ghana so that people can have access to the water that they need. And we wound up drilling 8, basically, with that initial campaign. It was kind of referenced in one of the articles that I sent you. But we use those in order to do it, because why didn't they build their own water well? First of all, you need the technology to do it. And this is why it was beneficial for us coming out of the African diaspora. We had global connections. And so here in Atlanta, we have Soul Vegetarian Restaurant. We have a variety of different institutions. We have different connections to people from Ghana who had access to resources. So we were able to pool the resources together to purchase the water rig, the borehole drilling device, and then ship it to Ghana. It's a big truck, really, with a big machine on the back of it, which penetrates into the earth. It's strong enough to crack granite and get to underground water supplies. Then you build a well around that, and you create a system so that people can access the water. So in many respects, when people think that they're in an area that's affected by famine, it's only because they don't know that there's actually water underneath their feet. The Bible taught us that, though. Abraham dug wells. There's water underneath the desert. You just don't see it, and you can't dig that far with your fingers, And so, that was the launch of the African Boreholes Initiative, which continued functioning throughout Ghana and then expanded into Kenya and eventually gave birth to that whole farmer system that I talked about. So when we deal with this kind of practical, solution-oriented work, it's way different than like I said, that religious mindset that perpetuates division and conflict and argumentation. That's not our interest. That's not really helpful in the long term. Those conversations are interesting and important even, but they're only important as we move forward. They're not important in and of themselves. They're important if we're moving forward and there are academic or philosophical objections to us working together, then we need to address these types of situations. But we're out there focusing on feeding people, building villages, sustaining our lives, building the economic base that we need in order to actually build a better world. And we have personally applied the principles that we're promoting within our own community. So we're not going around the world telling people to do stuff that we don't do, or telling people to do, like, here would be a theoretically great idea. It's like we're actually focusing on creating systems. And that's been the major objective, again, of Ben-Ami and the many pioneers of our movement. Whether we're talking about systems of how to care for pregnant mothers, what should they eat, how should they, what should the exercise routine be, what's the importance of raising their consciousness about mental and emotional health, and how their thoughts and their energy contributes directly to the development of the baby in that womb. So we need to create a whole system just to manage that component, And again, you go back to the scriptures and you see, even with the story, you see the issues pertaining to fertility and the womb all throughout the text. And you find references to the value of midwives. Even in that story in Exodus, is that the midwives had the ability to save the nation, save the boys. So that appreciation for the role of the midwife is something that's deeply embedded in our value system, not just today, but even going back to biblical times. So you can see these practical reference points as just insights. I didn't do a PowerPoint presentation. I just kind of wanted to give you the spirit of seeing the approach that we take and understand the global impact of the African Hebrew Israelites from that perspective. We have a program in Cleveland called the Riddall Green Partnership, which is focused on urban agriculture and youth education. This is one of our crown brothers, Atur Kima, leader in our community. This is Kohen Yehuda. And again, we developed a whole system that features a community kitchen, composting, environment programs, and training, because we want to help, again, shift this mentality away from the westernized, urbanized, lazy, city slicker, out of touch with reality, out of touch with nature, thinks all of our food grows in cans at the store. We need to move away from that mentality and get back into the actual holistic science of life. And this is one of the projects that was launched in Cleveland to facilitate that agenda. And we launched a program in Ghana. I'm gonna move to close now, for the record. We launched a program in Ghana that was called the Regenerative Health and Nutrition Program, right? If you go onto the Ghanaian website, the Ghanaian Ministry of Health's website, Ministry of Health for the Republic of Ghana, there's a section in here that says Regenerative Health and Nutrition, right? Regenerative health. Remember, I told you before that much of what we have in today's time is degenerative. But regenerative health is the attainment of optimal physical and mental well-being through the adoption of holistic, healthy lifestyles that strengthen and renew the body and mind and prevent diseases. The Preventive and Promotive Healthcare Program, initiated by the Ministry of Health in Ghana, it aims to transform the health, lives, and socioeconomic development of Ghanaians. Now, here's the interesting part. It's a logical policy program that has the focus of reducing the cost of lifestyle diseases, right, which are currently on the increase. Lifestyle changes include what people eat and drink and their physical activity levels, rest, and cleanliness. Now, learn about the origins of the Regenerative Health Nutrition Program, which says it draws on the experiences of an African Hebrew community living in Dimona, Israel, and tries to adapt them to Ghana. The main objective is to reduce the risk of the occurrence of diseases and disorders for individuals, households, and communities, so as to contribute to the development of healthier and productive population that can create wealth for itself and the country. And this is, I didn't write this. This is a link on the current website of the Ministry of Health for Ghana, West Africa. And so that, again, helps you see the scale. In 2005, I think it was, the previous Minister of Health in Ghana, Mayor Koresh Koshiga, actually traveled to Dimona, Israel, visited our community, and saw how powerful our holistic health system was and how effective it was. Even when the medical teams from the Israeli government and from US universities, when medical teams have come to study the health conditions of the community, they were shocked, because it's been said that Black Americans are genetically predisposed to various illnesses and diseases. They say you're genetic, by virtue of being a Black American, your genes are set up where you're probably going to have hypertension or high blood pressure, obesity, etc. And our position was that we are not genetically predisposed, right? We are culturally predisposed to these things. And by culturally predisposed, we mean we are doing the same things that our ancestors did, which caused us to have these diseases. If Big Mama keep eating pork chops and food, or a bunch of salt inside of the collard greens with turkey necks and then yams and mac and cheese with a bunch of cow's milk in it, a bunch of butter on top of we keep eating that soul food diet, yes, we're gonna clog our arteries just like she did. That's gonna put more pressure on our heart just like she had. Yes, we're gonna have high blood pressure because of that. We're probably gonna have a heart attack. You know what I mean? Just like she did. But that's cultural. But if we change our mindset and change our environment and change our systems and practices, then we can change our outcomes. And we've verified that as people who come from this population that's genetically predisposed to so many ailments, we've verified scientifically that these things can be reversed. Even the BBC commented on it in an article back in 2005, Healthy Lives Bear Fruit for African Hebrews, and it just talks about, it gives an example of some of the elders and their exercise regimen that they have. And so, infant, child, and maternal mortality are zero, a fact confirmed by health authorities in Dimona. Some of the most dangerous places for Black women to be today is the hospital. The level of things that happen inside of the hospital surrounding childbirth is very, very scary, to say the least. So we wanted to develop a holistic system that can be an alternative to that. Our belief is that there are too many funerals in Africa, never enough hospitals. We have to stop and ask why. And it goes into some of the other philosophical components of that. like you can see here in South Africa, the Nutrition Project for people living with HIV. So this concept of a regeneration, of a transformation of our hearts, a transformation of our minds, a transformation of our culture, which then goes on into the type of institutions that we build, then goes on to the type of relationships that we form, communities we create, government structures we establish, ways we influence other institutions and people. That is what we refer to as the redemptive process, right? Of again, not a religious concept of redemption, but like the redemption of Africa on a very practical level. And what we're interested in doing is collaborating with and joining forces with others who have a similar consciousness so that we can actually build this new world from the inside out. And there's economic components to it. There's the degree to which we interface with the African Union and a variety of other things, but I don't have infinite time today. So, but just to give you the core spirit of what we've been doing was the idea. And I'll close by sharing the work that we're doing here in Atlanta in particular. In the city of Atlanta, we have Soul Vegetarian Restaurant. We have our own daycare called Genesis Early Learning and Child Development. These are institutions that are open for the public. Dozens of children, every cycle from the general community. We provide healthy food that we make at our own restaurant to the children in the daycare. We also have a vegan bakery. We have a barber shop. We have a bookstore. We have a banquet hall. We have a holistic health spa. These are all Hebrew-owned institutions in the city of Atlanta that people can come to and support and learn and engage. The institution that I represent in particular is one that was developed by myself and a group of my colleagues, both in and out of the community, as an independent nonprofit organization, like I said before, that's committed to empowering the next generation of leaders. And we offer educational programs that promote healthy living, cultural enrichment, and leadership training for young people. A variety of ways you can get involved. I want to highlight our flagship program, which is Kindergartens. Once it loads. Kindergartens, boom. Got a lot of tabs open. So Kindergartens Academy continues on with the legacy of those great leaders and visionaries and world builders that I've been promoting so far. Many of them are now, although Ben-Ami was in his 20s, I think he was 26 when he left America, brought 300 people with him. Many of these people who are our pioneers and visionaries and leaders and foundation builders, they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s now. Many of them have passed and moved on. And so in my generation, what we wanted to do was continue on with the work that they did by building institutions and maintaining alignment with that core vision. And so Kindergartens, y'all see me hiding there in the back, was developed to do exactly that. This is the director of the program, Zabiel. I'm one of the directors of the organization as a whole. These are all key members of our squad. And again, like I said before, that's not exclusively a Hebrew Israelite or a Muslim or a Christian type of vibe. We get people from all kind of backgrounds in the community doing this work, educating our children and building these relationships. Gardening classes, community events, nutrition classes, camping trips, movie nights, and volunteering. Every week on Thursdays from 11 to 4, we're hosting people at our new headquarters, which is the Legacy Center. We've partnered with the Legacy Center to create an outdoor training center, and they allow us to use their indoor facilities. And again, so we have a basic philosophy that people should shift their mentality from consumption to production. That means teaching children how to grow food from the ground, not just buy it from the store, but to grow the food from the ground, to understand the nutritional and medicinal benefits of this food that grows from the ground, and then to be able to know how to create products from what you've grown. So being able to understand that, no, it's not enough, because even when you go throughout Africa, there's a lot of people on the sides of the road. And like I said, I've been to different African countries. You'll see them selling fruits, you see them selling vegetables, but they're not adding any value to the fruits and vegetables. So when you talk about creating value-added products, you're saying, okay, it's one thing to sell moringa leaf, but if you can create moringa powder, create a moringa smoothie, or create some kind of moringa skin product, you're doing much more. And when you create value-added products and you go up the value chain, you generate more resources and you move more towards self-sufficiency. One of Africa's major problems and the problems with Black people around the world is that we oftentimes find ourselves on the bottom of the value chain, only doing the grunt labor, but not the creative intellectual work. And so through Kindergartens, that's what we promote, the development of that of that higher consciousness through project-based learning that's hands-on and practical. And so you guys, if anybody's interested in learning more or how this program interfaces with our projects and stuff in Africa, you can just go to the bottom of our page, fill out a contact form, let us know what you're interested in, and we'll follow up with you. So that's the program that we have here. We also have a museum that we established in Israel, which goes back into that more historical, cultural, philosophical side, called the African Edenic Heritage Museum. And because as the African proverb says, not to know is bad, but not to wish to know is worse. And so that's a platform that was established in '94 as an international center for educating people on African history. So we trace African history all the way back from the early humans to biblical times up into the diaspora and how we've returned back. And we've actually created 5 of these duplicate exhibits worldwide. So our goal is to, again, continue scaling up these institutions, and those who would like to support us, learn more, engage in any way, just go to our website, sign up, ask questions, let us know what your background is, so we can see how we can collaborate and work together ultimately, because that's the spirit that we want to impart. So whether we're talking about projects and programs that are intergovernmental, like we worked with the Ghanaian government to launch the Regenerative Health and Nutrition Program, or whether it's stuff that's grassroots, like what we started doing here in Atlanta, whether it's educational on the side of promoting corrective historiography concerning the lies that we've been told about our history and heritage, or if it's just purely social and the need to create more social emotional wellness initiatives. Our focus is on building a new world, from the inside out, step by step. And I think it's the untold story of the African diaspora, that isn't in any of their history books. So that's why we're focused on sharing, and that's why I'm glad that Garfield invited me onto the platform so I can share. Hopefully you all gain something from the presentation, and I'll leave you as I came in perfect love and peace. Shalom.
I really appreciate that. The global impact of African Hebrew Israelites today. The brother went to Africa. He went to South Africa, Tanzania, Kenya. Oh man, he went all over, and they have a trip coming up soon to Egypt and Israel during the time of the Passover. And I think that's going to be beautiful, my brother. And I would love for you, before you go there, to give us a rundown of that. And when you come back, if you're able to give us a rundown of how it went and everything. With the videos and pictures and all that good stuff. That's good, right? Doing some good work, man. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you're doing, I tell everybody, man, we could unite based on our common cause. We could put all philosophy aside, and we have a global problem that's not only in the United States. I remember going to UK promoting my book, and there was a reparations march, and the brother just gave me the mic just on GP, and I gave a speech, and I was telling them what's happening here in America with the African Americans. And it's the same problem that you go there, and the same problem in France, same problem in the UK, same problem in America. We are being mistreated anywhere we go in the world. We are a people that's definitely despised and rejected. All right, to get back to the biblical talk. All right, so thank you.
Can I add one more thing on it, or are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
So on that note, the article that I shared from the BBC, it quoted a medical doctor from Ghana, named Ahneeahm, who talked about how we left and we reconnect with nature. Dr. Ahneeahm was the senior advisor to Ghana's Ministry of Health. And he's also a member of our community, right? So he's one of the leaders of the Hebrew Israelite community. His title is he's an Atur, he's a crown brother. So this particular doctor was very instrumental because he was the senior advisor to Ghana's Ministry of Health when the Ebola outbreak occurred in West Africa, Sierra Leone, Guinea. So what happened was, the president was going to Europe. Him and the president were going to Europe. And I have the video of him explaining this story himself. That they were on their way to Europe, where they were trying to engage various stakeholders in the global humanitarian sector to try to get financial support to help respond to the Ebola outbreak, right? This is what African leaders and politicians do. They campaign for financial support, usually from Europe and America, or maybe from China, because China's angling itself now. And they're trying to figure out how we can solve African problems using international resources. So he goes back to Israel after that campaign was not successful. And then he shares a story with Ben-Ami. Remember, he's our founder and spiritual leader, right? And so Ben-Ami just doesn't even respond. If you were like working with the president of a country to go do some resources, you told somebody the story, you want them to be kind of excited, like, oh, you're doing big business, yeah. Ben-Ami was not excited. He was like, why'd you go to Europe? There's no African millionaires and billionaires that we can get money from to solve African problems. That's the demographic that we should be appealing to. because what if Europe says, we never want to help you guys anymore, figure it out on yourself, then what do we do? So the mindset that you should be promoting is when we're going to the African, you got oil tycoons, communication giants, you got African people with money now. This is an African problem. Ebola was an African problem in Africa, right? And so that was Ben-Ami's message to him, like a mental redirection, so to speak. Mm-hmm. What happens is, a few days later, he gets a call from the person who was over the African Union at that time, the chairperson over the African Union. Mm-hmm. The African Union is like the intergovernmental system that kind of governs all Africa. And so Madam Zuma, she was a former wife of the former South African president, Jacob Zuma. She calls this brother, Ahneeahm Azagenu, who we know as Artur Navoniel. She calls him personally because she's putting together a committee of, I think, 7 to 8 different people to do a fundraising campaign throughout Africa to do exactly what Ben-Ami said he needs to do. So he saw that as being like spiritual, like, us, we spiritual people. So we're like, that's not a coincidence. So it was almost like prophetic foresight is how he saw it, right? Like, I just got through thinking this is what we should do. She's putting together a team of several professionals who would do a fundraising campaign throughout the continent, go to the biggest, richest people, see if we can get them to work together to respond to this public health crisis, which can affect all of us if we don't do right. So he's on the team in like a week or two. I don't even think it was that long. Very quickly, they raised like $38 million, right? And they did so by engaging these key titans in commerce and business, because since the 90s, most of what people have always thought about Africa as is they need aid, But the reality is, since the 90s, we've seen the rise of African multinational companies, African businesses, African communication networks, African tech firms, right? It's just not a story that you hear in the Western world, but there's a lot of successful African entrepreneurs and business people. And the problem was they weren't always working together. So this fundraising initiative led to the development of a network, which the first boots on the ground to respond to the Ebola crisis in West Africa were sponsored by this fundraising initiative that one of the members of our community was an instrumental part in setting up. Now, because that means he was the investment facilitator, the networker, and then he has the health background to know a lot of those puzzle pieces. So what am I getting at here? What he does is he leverages that. So ultimately, the Ebola crisis was contained. It didn't become what Fox News and everybody thought it would be, which is the end of the world. It was contained. And that vision that Ben-Ami had about, hey, why don't we go to the African communities, right? It became very, very relevant because now a network had been established. So what he did in his brilliance, with the people that he had begun to associate with now, was he established a club. He wanted to institutionalize the network. And so you can Google in your own time, the Afro Champions Club. And the Afro Champions is the collection of leaders from the public and private sectors of Africa. The millionaire, billionaire class and the heads of state who are committed to a shared vision for the development of Africa. He said, we need to find a way for us to continue working together. So he eventually was able to pull Aliko Dangote, who is the richest man in Africa, since Mansa Musa. You know what I mean? Is Aliko Dangote from Nigeria. He was to be the co-chair. And then he pulled former South African president Thabo Mbeki, who was also the first chairman of the African Union back in 2000. He pulled him to be the chairman of this club. From that point forward, he's on the executive committee. You got these different people, his other partners like Michael Cotto, and they start just bringing in all the heavy hitters, right? From across the continent, from each different region, from different areas of the country. Because you got people who are experts in building and maintenance. You got people who are experts in finance, people who are experts in political, legal stuff, right? All of them need to work together and present to the African Union a vision of how they want to help the continent. So the Afro Champions Initiative was exactly that. And one of the major projects that they have successfully been able to ratify is the African Continental Free Trade Area. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it relates directly to what you were talking about. The African Continental Free Trade Area is the idea of interlocking all of these different African countries into one shared economic system. Whereas right now, most of them are separate countries with their own economic systems, and they don't have good policies for promoting trade with each other. So only 12% of trade that happens in Africa happens between African countries.
Okay, that's
yeah. Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and I moved close. So only 12% happens between African countries, right? That means most of it happens between like Ghana with Britain, or Ghana with China, or Ghana with America, instead of Ghana with Nigeria. Because in order for Ghana to do business with Nigeria or Chad or Djibouti or South Africa, all it has to go through all these weird channels, the tax systems and all that stuff is just not conducive for business. So we have to bring all these leaders together to try to integrate the economies. And that's what the African Continental Free Trade Area is about. On the books, it's also on All African Passport and other initiatives like that. So the kingdom, the African Hebrew Israelite community, has been intimately involved in all of these sectors, really since our inception in terms of global impact. And I just want to highlight that as another success story because it relates to our vision of unification. We work with the African Union on the 6th Region Initiative and other things because ultimately that's the long-term focus. So we have our own culture, our own system, we respect other people's cultures, but are there ways that we can collaborate and work together to create better conditions for all of us?
All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you to the good brother again, for taking the time out on this afternoon here. And I'm definitely enjoying all the information. I learned a lot, and I hope the audience learned a lot also. Peace and love, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for tuning in.
Peace and blessings.
All right, so we're gonna continue the dialogue. Anyone who wants to click the link at the top and get into the conversation, you have the opportunity right now to basically add on to the conversation what you like, what you don't like, how do you think you could benefit the community, what are you doing for the community. And let me start off by saying what I'm doing for the community is I'm taking care of me and taking care of my children, my family first. That's the first thing I'm doing and trying to represent myself in a positive light so that it will reflect through my children. The most I could do is be a role model for my children, and that's what it is. A lot of people like to come in front of the community and say, yo, we should do this, we should do that, and you don't even have your life straight. You need help yourself when you want to come out to the community and say, hey, let's do this. Come on, hit the link. All this talk in the chat, hit the link. What are your solutions? That's what I want to know. What are your solutions? Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, here we are. We got Stew Peas in the building. Come on in, Stew Peas. What's your gripe? What are you adding to the conversation, beloved?
No, everything is everything. Behave yourself. Be conscious of the comments that you type. Please be conscious. There is the after party. If you want to voice your opinion, you come in and you take 2 minutes and voice your opinion. But in the comment section, please be careful of the narrative that you send. Right? Garfield, big up yourself. Big up yourself, Garfield. Good 20 for 20. This young man, what he said his qualification was? He said he was a teaching assistant at a university.
Yeah, he I think he worked with Clark University, but I don't know. I think he brings a lot to the table, and but let's add on. We might not agree 100%, but the fact that you're doing some sort of work is good. Everybody turn off your YouTube if you're jumping on.
Yeah. The other thing that he mentioned earlier, that he was in Ghana and Sabia said something, and I said to Sabia, I typed back a message to Sabia saying that, Sabia, have you not read the Old Testament stories that occurred in Ghana of how they turn yam into bread? It's in Ghana. It's in the Bible. Yeah, the Jews were in Ghana. They turned yam into bread. Look it up. True.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
Of course. Look it up. Yaruba 1 verses 3. There was a shortage of bread in the land, and they turned yam into bread. It's in the New Testament book of Yaruba. True.
You stupid. Stupid is a fool.
Yeah.
Total fool. I cannot.
Everything is everything. Jump on. What's popping? Well, what's up? Everything is everything. What's your beef? What's your gripe? Everything is everything. What's your gripe, man?
Yellow yard.
Unmute, everything is everything. Unmute and speak.
Juju, go ahead. Go ahead, Juju. What are you thinking? What's on your mind?
Now, I think it's nice for people to understand where the people are coming from. A lot of times in these YouTube streets, people are looked down upon. Oh, you only battling on YouTube. What are you doing in the community? And lots of us do lots of things in the community. My resume is okay, and I say that because I could do a lot more. But I'm very proud of my accomplishments. I've always been an advocate to push forward African-centered thought process. I think that's important for cultivating our youth, not to alienate them or separate them, but for them to understand that they are the forefront. They are special. They are powerful. They are indeed intelligent and smart. Just anything that combats what the narrative is about Black African people in the diaspora, Black people, period. That's what I move forward to do. And it started off in college, at FSU when I ended up back in Daytona. I tried to get with like-minded people. I had the privilege of bringing the Honorable Malifi Asante to Daytona to speak in my early days. Got to meet him and his beautiful wife and take them out to dinner and have intimate conversations. I helped start a nonprofit here, and we were also able to solidify and recognizing a day for Malcolm X here in Daytona Beach, Florida, in Central Florida, in sundown time area. Ku Klux Klan still runs, around. They don't call themselves that anymore, of course. They have different names, but we were able to do that. Able to galvanize people, help galvanize people to do what we call when we go to the lobbying in Tallahassee for what I believe is Amendment 4 and education equity for our children and criminal justice reform. I did those things. I was there. So anytime I get a chance to get my feet wet or dirty, in the respect to our advancement, I do that. My last project was probably pretty fun. I got involved with the organization and we started a community garden. And I infiltrated this organization because it was on the cornerstone of like a Black neighborhood and a poor lower class white one. But I wanted the Black neighborhood to have some involvement. So I did help build and construct and open this garden. Do I have anything to do with it now? Not so much because there's so many politics. Um, and if you're in a small city or community like mine, unless you are kind of indoctrinated into the political scene by being a religious leader or pastor, or you bow down, it's hard to get in, it's hard to get support, especially for people like us in the chat who might not be so much into religious indoctrination anymore. But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I still do go to church, I still participate with those religious organizations who are doing positive work for our people. Regardless, it's important that we do that. So um, let's just be mindful and respectful of our culture. I definitely respect the history of the Black church, so that's all I have to say. But that's some of the things that I've done and I'm proud of, and got more work to do, once I get up and at 'em for real, for real. I'm still recovering from surgery, but about another month or so, planning to travel, and yeah, we'll see what we got in store.
Respect, Sister Jojo. Respect yourself. Enough respect.
Thank you.
Big up.
Big
Let
up.
me ask you something to everybody on the panel. Everything that brother do and say, why couldn't he do it as an African? Why the blood clot him have to turn?
Hey, 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 hey.
Hey, what?
Why you cursing?
Profanity. Why the profanity?
And I have the blood clot time for the blood clot panel thing.
No, no,
Why
no,
you-
no, no, no.
As an African,
Well,
Kick him
he,
off.
well, he's
Because,
kick your bumbo clot, kick your mama, I want to you. Me say,
no,
why
man,
can't
you
do it
come on
as
the man show and be disrespectful to him. Make your point without that. Because you was talking to your
We
teacher.
don't even know what
You
the
was
word
talking to your
means.
mother.
he's off.
You
He's
will,
off. Calm down, calm down, calm down.
We don't even know what the word means. Translate. He was cursing? I don't know.
Right.
He's straight up cussing.
Brother Reggie, I'm with you.
Reggie know what it means. Reggie live in New York. No,
I'm
Reggie,
with you,
Reggie
Reggie.
lives in New York. Reggie know what it means. Don't pay Reggie any back. Reggie
Reggie,
just
I'm
be a
with you.
troublemaker. Reggie lives in New
I
York.
don't know what he was saying. I
Yeah,
just,
Yeah.
I just thought it was patois. Like it wasn't.
it was a curse? Wow.
It was right. Is the curse word?
You two know about it?
Right.
Reggie, stop it. You know that's a curse word.
You're funny, Reggie.
Wait, if you two don't know about it, it can't be striked.
No, no, but other people who listening to it know about it.
Hmm. Okay.
Just play dumb and move on. Moving forward, though.
What's the difference between petty nationalism or places where we come from, right?
Hmm.
And what the brother was saying about being a Hebrew. So what I'm just saying is we can all be neutral. So let's just all be neutral. You understand what I'm saying? If you say that that's a curse word, that comes from a national or a place where you come from, but not everybody knows about that. So what you're doing is you're putting up your flag.
Yeah, tell him to stay on code, Reggie. Tell him to stay on code. Jeez.
Well, just to ask the question, he's saying why the gentleman couldn't just do it as an African. I mean, that's his faith is he's a Hebrew. That's what his faith is. But he spoke as an African.
He did.
He did.
An African Hebrew. But he did.
Yeah,
He
he
did speak as an African.
In one sense, it's no different than, let's say, it was a Nigerian organization, right? Or it was a Ghanaian organization, and they're talking about all the things that they're just doing. He's just saying that he's an African Hebrew. But I think all things aside, sometimes we have to put not only our religion to the side, but our petty nationalism to the side, right? And so that way we don't have these arguments. And so it was good that the brother came on. Is he still on, or y'all pushed him off?
Who?
The brother that was talking about those.
Oh no, that was a pre-recording, I believe.
No, the brother who just came on who said,
Oh,
everything is everything.
Everything is in the chat still.
Okay, good. Y'all didn't kick him off, right?
We kick him off
on the panel.
Oh, okay.
Stu Pease had him kicked off.
Well, it was important because that's the whole point of it is we need to look at ourselves as a people first,
right,
before anything else. So even though I argue with everything is everything, he made an important point. The point is, why don't we just talk about solutions that we can do as a people without a particular connotation? Or it wouldn't be so bad if every like paragraph or so he has to name his nationality or his grouping, right? If he would have did all of that and at the end say, and I'm an African Hebrew, that would have been okay. I don't think he would have had any, pushback. I wouldn't be pushing back. I'm just saying that after a while, I was just like, well, I think you're just pushing that too much. You're supposed to do that anyway because you're African, right? But he's not a Hebrew African. He's an African Hebrew. So at least he puts up African first. Correct?
Yeah. Sure, Reggie.
Like I'm an African American.
Right.
Right? But I'm African first. No difference. So sometimes, we don't have to overmarket something. When we overmarket it, it becomes FBA, it becomes ADOS, and it becomes problematic to other groups of Africans that are living in the Caribbean. I mean, living in America, excuse me, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes the sub part of the name, right, is it makes it bigger than the first part of the name, right? We just African.
Understood.
I
I did
said,
want to address. I'm sorry. Were you finished, Reggie?
no, I said, Juju, you can interrupt me anytime.
Hey, Reggie, I hope you ain't gonna be mad, but I wanted to put something out there because everybody always giving you flack about sending back money and how you petty. I'm like, I support Reggie and his scholarship, his due diligence to the scholarship, and when I can, I send him money, and sometimes he sends it back. So it's not that
Cause you
if he did it,
Juju.
he hates you. I mean, it's a show of love. I just want to clear that up and clean that up for some
Oh
people
yeah,
who
because
think we
I love you,
listen. Okay.
Juju.
Okay, I know you do. So, yeah, I mean, that's just that Reggie's who he is, and he'll need to apologize for it. But I do want to address the chat and asking about said gentleman's credentials. So, if you got in late, from my understanding, if I heard correctly, he does teaches at Clark Atlanta, and he teaches at the school, which is a college. So,
He's an
being
academic.
that said, he definitely has at least a degree, and I'm assuming he has a master's degree. A lot of times, if you don't have a PhD, you still have to have a master's degree to be um, a student teacher or intern or whatnot. So I do want to say that he does have, academic credentials here. So yeah, that's it.
He's smart.
Yeah,
No,
he's intelligent.
the reason why I asked for his credential because it amazes me
No,
when
somebody
the
else in the
best,
chat
yeah,
also were
yeah,
asking, not just
yeah,
you,
but
Stu Peas.
the reason why I asked is because it amazes me all the while that our best and our brightest
Mm-hmm.
can be brainwashed. So what? No, no, that's why I always ask for the degree.
Right.
Because if our best and our brightest can be an Egyptomaniac,
Yeah.
if our best and our brightest can go to some of the best school and believe that they are priests, it amazes me. What chance does the least of us have when our best and our brightest can fall into the trap of being a Hebrew?
Hey,
That's why I always ask.
let me ask everybody this, right? Because I want to forget that I don't care if he's a Hebrew at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to put this question to everybody. What are you doing for the community? And I'll say this first. And nobody needs to feel that they have to do
Right.
anything for the. I hope everybody understands this. I want to make sure that my children are safe and they're in a position where I could transfer generational wealth for the next 200-300 years, but also knowledge. So I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. My job is to protect them and also to guide them for the future. Now, lucky for me, none of my children are religious. None of them are religious. My eldest asked me about Islam, and I gave him books. I don't remember who sent me some book. I said, hey, if you're interested in Islam, I told him about Nation of Islam. I told him about regular Islam, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I told him the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right. If he wants to now follow up and become a Muslim, that's on him. But I don't force any of my children to be like me per se. All right. My daughter, she just want to be just like me. I ain't got to tell her nothing. She does like, I'm not doing none of that religious stuff. Right. Now that's the eldest. Now, my job is to produce children and be a role model for my children. That's my job. I'm doing for the community.
You still producing children, Garfield?
As much as he wants to now. Let's stop.
She,
Stu Peas, to address your comment though, when you say the best and the brightest being indoctrinated, and this is why I go so hard for pseudo killers and Bobby Banger pushing scientific literacy because you're not going to win them all, okay? And if we continue to push scientific literacy, that'll be good enough because here it is. Like, I mean, being our predisposition as humans, Homo sapiens sapien or whatnot, uh, some people, I would like to say it, are just better off, staying in their kind of religious mindset at a point. Maybe it's for their mental stabilization or whatnot. I don't know. But what I'm saying when it comes down to it, if we still have those tools to exercise our critical and logical thinking, will be fine. Doesn't matter what religion you're in, and that's just how I really feel about it. And I think the smartest and the brightest of us, even on the academic level in these institutions, know how to put the religion aside. And if they can't, then hopefully through due diligence and methodology and the scientific method, we'll know where they are biased and wrong. Period. Does that not make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he
That's
wasn't
just how.
talking about his religion. He wasn't talking about his rituals, his practice. He was just identifying with his group that are doing things. And so at least he's definitely smart. He's very smart, and he's a good networker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just talking about what his group that supports what he does. But I hate to say um, but he is recognizing his group effort. So we have to accept that if it was somebody from the Nation of Islam on, they would do the same thing. If it was you can't tell members of the Nation of Islam nothing about what they're doing, right? And so that part we have to accept. If we wanted to say, we can't say that he's not doing anything uh, uh, progressive, anything that's needed. We can't say that. I cannot say that about what the brother. He named all the things that he's doing. So I could leave out. I can leave out the religious part for the most part. Um, but what I think he was just a little bit too heavy, just a little as if that group is doing something that other groups are not doing. That's where I have a problem with, because all of us is doing. Booker T. Washington gave us an incredible blueprint that most of our positive works actually sits on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hmm.
All right, go ahead. Mighty Hebrew, you want to say something, beloved?
Shalom, shalom to the family. How y'all feeling? I just came in just to say thank you, Garfield, for having brother Ahneeahm on. It was definitely an honor and a privilege. And give a shout out to Dagger Squad. Shout out to Dr. Reggie, live here in Tanzania, East Africa. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Garfield.
All right, peace and love, brother. All right.
Now that's humbleness right there, because Mighty Hebrew is mighty. The prince is mighty, and for him,
stupid.
Whoa, boy, shoot! This is the main man, right? But hey, you can't get no more humble than that, boy. That's all I want to say.
Hey, Thunder, come on, man, because you Mr. Contrarian, aka Start the Rumble. What do you think about what people do for the community? Are we obligated to do for our community, bro? Thunder, you there? Oh, he's on his phone. Go ahead, Sabio.
Oh boy, where's Sabio at?
Sabio, go ahead.
Come on, Mike, I'm mute.
There you are, Sabio. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yo, what up? What up?
Go get him, Sabio.
Man, it was some of the things he was saying was cool. I appreciate the work and the effort that he's doing for the community and the people that he's doing it for. But honestly, he sounded like a Muslim. He sounded like the Nation of Islam to me.
Oh, okay. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing either. But the religion.
Oh, okay.
It's too religified. We don't need religion in 2023.
All right. Black Lion, what's up? What's up, man?
Hotel Black African Power. I'm gonna greet y'all like that. No, what the bum up? No, I'm just playing.
No, we need a translator for that one. We need a translator.
It means MF. That's all it means. I was married to my ex-wife was Jamaican, so I know what it means. So it just means MF.
But BLS, Hotep is religious, man.
No, it just means peace. That's all. It just means peace.
No, it does
That's
not
what
mean
it,
peace.
that's what was taught to me. So that's what it means to me.
I'm a
It just
Metanetica
means peace.
scholar. It don't mean that. It means offering.
Okay, well, I think Shaka disagree with you, brother Reggie.
I'm a,
So
I'm a
Please
Metanetica
don't mention
scholar.
his name
So
on here, please.
You know,
no,
you know,
no, it's Shaka
Oh,
Amos. I'm not talking about that dude.
oh,
Are you serious?
okay.
No, yeah, no way.
He's gonna have a whole page of videos now.
Yeah,
I'm
nah. Let me
a
make it
Metanetica
clear.
scholar.
Shaka Amos. Let me
So
make it
watch
clear.
this. Who was the first one to come on these shows with Metal Netcher? Who was it?
Reggie.
Right. So
You were one of the first to come on these shows with Metanetta, and you and Shaka used to have discussions. You used to do videos. I've never heard you use the definition that you're using now for Hotep.
no,
When
I
Shaka
didn't
used
use
to
that.
greet us and say Hotep and means peace, I've never heard you correct him. Not once. Not once did you ever correct him when he said Hotep.
Me and Shaka, we talk personally, and he had the Nile Valley movement, and Shaka could be a little bit aggressive online, but personally, we talk. Now I'm
I'm just telling you for years, and he called on me, so that's the only reason why I'm interrupting you, because it was my turn to speak. I watched you for years. 2, 3 years straight. Both of y'all teach. Both of y'all say hotep to each other. Never heard you once ever disagree or say that it meant offerings. Never heard you say that until now. So excuse me if I'm going by the
no, I
definition
just
that I was taught by you and him for 2 to 3 years.
listen to me, please. This is 2023. Now the community is a little bit more mature, right? Because at the same time, when I was doing it, I thought that we was learning it. I didn't know that there was a whole movement of comedics, right? Pushing stuff that don't.
Oh boy.
I didn't know that it was going to turn into this. I thought we was doing it academically and we was just identifying with our community. Now I find that there's priests and finding things, and I got to have a showdown with people on Virgin and beat the brakes off of somebody based on using the metanetra. So now, excuse me, BLS, because you my man.
Of
But
course, go ahead. That's why I'm not saying anything. Go right
this
ahead.
stuff has went too far now. It's gone too far. It's past academic and us trying to understand Nile Valley words and things like that. Now you got cults and they're very close to us, and because they're very close to us, we don't critique them. I started critiquing them because I'm like, no, now you're poisoning the community with stuff that's not even real, that you can't even prove. But BLS, I will say to you, Hotep, it's still, I will say to you, Hotep, because you BLS and I think you understand what I'm saying.
Of
But
course.
when we're beating up the Hebrews, the Moors, the Hebrew Israelites, the Christians, then we have to be honest with ourselves because we got groups of people that are not scientific at all, right? Not
Right.
scientific at all. Okay, PLS. So you understand what I'm saying. So it's
Yeah, of course I do. Let me explain a little bit more, and then I'm going to touch on the topic because that's what I came to do. Uh, I greet us in the African word hotep because it throws back in the Hebrews' face that the reason why people left or are leaving religion is because of Kemet, because of the information we found out about Kemet was one of the launching pads that brought us out of religion and definitely brought me out of Christianity.
Hmm.
So it sparks them every time I say Hotep. They always have something to say, so that's why I use it for the most part
okay.
because
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. Because I've always looked. Now, if Garfield and Sean will tell you, if they remember, I was one of the first before it got popular to bang on someone calling himself a Kemetic priest. and I was talking about brothers Jabari. I was one of the first when everybody else was going to Brother Jabari's house and kicking it with him and all that. I was banging on someone calling himself a Kemetic priest. I never been comfortable with that. I always spoke against it. And at first, I was standing alone. No one else was standing with me at the time. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. I was the first to say something about it when it was unpopular to say anything. But nevertheless, I want to touch on the topic, and because I have a little experience with this, with being the co-founder of the 4 Point Nation Black Alliance. Now, I'm one of the founders. The other founder was a Hebrew Israelite out of North Carolina. I'm not going to mention his name. Now, our task was a little bit more military. We did we would do well. We was doing policing our own neighborhoods, and one of the main things that we focused on was women, black women that were being battered. That was one of our main objectives, was to put an end to protect black women that did not have protectors. That's what was one of our main focuses. So I have a little experience when it comes to this, and we had people, Israelites, we had Christians, we had people that was in the Nation of Islam, we had people from all types of religions and non-religions. So what happened was, in this organization, the people started to push their religions on the members, and that caused a rift between us. We even had members in Igbo land. That's how far it was started to stretch. So I get it, and I think that if you're going to do this, you have to keep your beliefs out of it. You can't start an organization with all those different belief systems in it, and then turn the focus from building a black nation, building a black economic power, trying to build black infrastructure, trying to protect the black community, and then but make the focus more about your religious and your even your non-religious aspects. You have to keep it within the true goal, and that is to uplift our people. So I'm glad to see this brother up here that just did this piece up here. I'm glad to see him here. It seems like he's doing a pretty good job. I just hope that if he starts to add on more people to his organization, the same thing doesn't happen to his that happened to mine. So good luck to him, and I hope he takes this advice, and just because the problem is, especially here in America, when you try to do this with people that's into these religions, they try to all of a sudden push the religion on the membership. That is not a good idea. All it's going to do is cause conflict. So peace to him, though, and I hope I wish him luck. But it's going to be difficult once his organization begins to grow, especially here in America, because these people that's into these religions get into their feelings real quick when these type of conversations start to come up, instead of focusing on what is really necessary, and that is an infrastructure for our people that we can build politically and economically in our past.
Good statement.
Thank you.
And this is the El Hajj Malik Shabazz, his assassination anniversary date was yesterday, and he gave us those great words: put your religion in your pocket, right? And so that is something that was a gift that man gave to us that we still haven't understood yet, right? Once because people who are religious tend to convert at some point. They tend to do that. And so that was a great observation.
Appreciate it. I just want us to understand that the main objective has got to be if we want to stay here, like we keep saying we do, then we must put a foot into the political arena. We must start to grow. We must understand how it works, must understand how the economic system in America works. Not just learn economics, but learn the science of economics. Once we get that down pat, then we can begin to move upward. But as long as we don't take and this is why I push education. Is until we start to take education as seriously as we do religion, we're going to be stuck in the same place. That's what has us stuck. We're fine with it when it comes to religion. Those who have these beliefs, we're not knocking you for your belief. If you want to believe in a deity, by all means, knock yourself out. But when we're talking about political power, when we're talking about economic power, then that's where the conversation has to stay, and that's where the education must come in, and it has nothing to do with religion.
You want to know what's crazy? It seems like everything we must do as black people revolves around religion. Unfortunately, no matter how hard we push against it and talk about education, it seems people will always put that education with, and this is getting real traumatizing to sit around and listen and look and see these things continue to happen continuously. Like for real, are we really not paying attention? Do we really want to? Are we really trying to go back? Don't try to take me back to something that's archaic. Like I appreciate all the work the brothers doing is great, but it's no different than James Amos when I look at it, who is a white Christian who's in Africa doing what? Converting Africans to Christianity, telling them that their indigenous spiritual practices, the indigenous practices, are pagan. He showed me this. I did a whole message, a whole show showing the message, the Facebook chat. When I asked the man distinctly if the Egyptians were human, because he said Jesus is the definition of humanity. So I asked him, were the Egyptians humans because they had the gods Asar, Aset, and Hebrew? His response was nothing.
It was what?
Nothing. He did not respond.
Oh, okay, because he know his job. You know too much. You know too much, Sabio. So he was like, I'm looking for people who I can plant seeds into. You're not one of them. That's all. You're just not a person that he can plant seeds in. And so we have to. Reason why we do this work is to understand history, and so we can see great movements. So we can see the great Islamic movement in Africa, right, where Islam offered uh, ahad, unity, right, and that is something that was lacking in Africa, but it came with a bit of poison at the back of the spoon, right? We found that out later. It was about their version of jihad. One is direct warfare. The other thing is alms for Allah, charity, right? And you find that in trade. But at the back of the spoon was the poison that you are not really Arabic. You're not really connected to the prophet. You are basically a slave, right?
Right.
Abdullah, abd. You're basically a servant,
The copy cool.
right? And we find that out later, and then we we can't. And then it was just way too late. We was in their practices. We was partnering with them when the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, transsaharan slave trade. We started partnering with them. The poison, the sugar got to us first, and then the poison got to us later. And then our identities in America, our multiple identities in America for survival, and our ideas. But the brother was talking about solutions. So independent of his religious affiliation, almost all of his ideas were good. But what's missing, family, there's economics, politics, and culture. But what's missing in that, and my teacher, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, always taught us about that. But it should be economics, politics, culture, and revolution. And you find that most of these religious groups, all their work has nothing really directly to do with revolution. It has more to do with the status quo and just progressing, and that becomes a danger because the bigger system of super exploitation absorbs all of that good work to make themselves stronger, and you're defenseless, right? Because you have your 501c3s, you have all those things that are the structures that make you dependent on their system, and they can pull a plug anytime. So revolution, checks and balances is something that's often missed. But all of his work were valid, is international. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. It's just that if he's watching the how can I say, he shouldn't put something controversial at the tip of his tongue, right? That would make people reject. If he said all the things that he said and didn't start talking about our communities and stuff like that, and talking about in the sense of tying it with his religion, then it would have been easier to absorb.
Facts.
Yeah.
Big facts, brother Reggie. Well said. And Sabio is absolutely correct. It baffles my mind when I see this, because it's like we don't understand. It wasn't the modern day European, even though they still do it today, but it wasn't the modern day European that converted our people into these religions. It was the very Europeans that threw our ancestors off of slave ships into the sharks. It was the very Europeans that burned us alive, that cut us up while they hanged us. It was the very Europeans that would skin us alive. These are the Europeans that introduced us to Christianity. Don't understand is this: these people that's doing this today are not the first. When missionary groups came into Africa promoting their religion, they actually used Africans to do this. They turned many Africans into their missionaries to speak the languages of those people, to convert them into Christianity. These people are not the first to do this, and how they can go along with this and do the same thing that was done to us by our enemies is beyond my understanding. I can't comprehend it. I don't get it. Let's build a nation. Let's talk about things that will benefit us as a people, that will give us economic power, political power. That's what the main focus should be. Let's start up think tanks in every state in America that is going to promote education. That's how it should be. Leave your religion, like Brother Reggie just said, in your pocket. We don't want to hear about it. Just like you don't want to hear about us saying that we don't have a God concept. We won't push that on you, and you don't push your religion on us, and we just focus on infrastructure. That's how we're going to make it in this country. Otherwise, we're always going to be behind. We're always going to be looking up instead of looking down. We have to start to talk about the real issues and the real power plays that boost other people, other races in this country to higher heights. And not just sit up and ask our people to wait for some entity in the sky to come and do it for us. That's what happens when these religions gets promoted. Go ahead, fam.
Can I say something, please? Can I say something? No, I sit back and I watch, and I do not want to come off as a hypocrite, but I have to evaluate my thinking sometimes because as I sit here and think about the brother, the biggest group in any African community, whether it want to be Africans on the continent or Africans in the diaspora or Africans in the Caribbean, would be the church. But nobody talk about the second biggest group in the African community. And although it might not be a religion, it still has group, it still has rules and guidelines. Can anybody tell me the second largest group in the African community around the world? The second largest group is the gangs.
Is it what?
Is the gang. Is the gangs, Gangs. The second largest group in the African community around the world, apart from the church, is the gangs. They might not be unified in all countries, but if we add them up individually, they are the second largest group. Right? But we do not speak about those. No, I understand the reason why sometimes you might need an organization to push a belief or an interest that you may have. Reggie have a good Black City plan, but probably if Reggie was working with an organization that was organized, it might have reached further. And one of the most organized organization that we use, double entendre, one of the most organized organization that is in the Black community is the church, or is a religious system. This young man is working with the Hebrew Israelite, and they are doing good works. They have a nice, pretty web page. It looks very professional. It shows what they're doing, right? Because many hands make the work easier. It is easy for us to sit here and say, let's bash, let's get rid of religion. But it is the most organized thing that we have in our community.
So,
And nobody can deny that. Push
Can I
back.
push back just a little bit?
Push back.
Today,
Reggie gonna say they owe reparations.
no. Today, Suppies, we're not talking about goats. So I'm a me and we friends. Goats was the other day. No, the biggest structure is capitalism. And then capitalism, whatever with religions, you gotta understand, Europeans, they weren't Christians at first.
No, I'm talking in the Black community.
No, right. I'm just drilling down, trying to show you how this works. It's capitalism. It's oppressive capitalism and imperialism. That's the first thing. Religion. Europeans had to be forced into Christianity. They weren't Christians. They had to be forced into it. Muslims, they weren't Muslims at first. They had to be forced into it, and on top of it was wealth for a few and a trickle down to the rest. So I just want to adjust it. It's capitalism and it's armed imperialism, oppressive imperialism, and then it's religion was a tool that they use, right? Because it stops people from thinking. And then gangs, as you talked about it, or just smaller groups looking to find their way back to the top, which is oppressive capitalism. So I just wanted to push back just a little bit, because if we don't see, I'm not pushing socialism.
Yes, you are.
I'm not a socialist at all. I think that is the same. That's the other side of capitalism, where things are state-owned, where it's worse than capitalism, where you're the property of the state, right? And you have no wealth, right? Socialism and communism is definitely not our friend.
Capitalism, the greatest system ever created, and it will never be unseated. Period.
Can I rebut? And I'm not rebutting Reggie.
Hey, hold on, man.
I,
Hey,
no,
Garfield.
no, no, no.
Hold on, I got
Let
you,
me,
stupid. I got you, stupid.
okay.
They
Hey,
talk one time, man. Why y'all trying to get my contrarian out of here, man? Come on,
hey,
man.
what's the name of this group? Like, what's the website and all that?
The African Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah, whoever that was.
Ahneeahm. Just look for
The website is African Hebrew Development Agency, and I had already posted it in the link, but you can put that into your Google search and it'll come right up.
And he's in Atlanta.
Yeah,
he is in
Yes.
Atlanta.
Oh, good. I'm gonna support him.
Teaches
tomorrow.
at Clark Atlanta.
Oh, at Clark Atlanta. Good. That's right down the street. Well, right downtown. Yeah.
That's petty nationalism. You're gonna support him because he's in your he's in your neck of the woods.
What you want me to do, bro? This is my community. What you talking about, Reggie?
That's your community. You're petty nationalist.
Reggie, this is my city.
Just like if somebody was from Jamaica or from Guyana or from Barbados, I'm gonna support my brother.
I was the first person to buy Garfield's book online when he posted the link. I was the first, number one.
Talk about it, bro.
He's from Jamaica.
I was the first person to get the autograph Garfield book.
That's fine.
Your book, not autograph.
Yeah, let's have a
Your
fight.
book,
Your
your
book,
book,
you're right.
your book, not autograph. My book, autograph.
I was the first one to debate Garfield.
All right.
Oh, brother.
Come on.
I still promote Garfield book right to this day. My avatar on Facebook. My avatar on Facebook is Garfield's book. But now, coming from you, the Trump boy of the conscious community, I have no problem with what you're saying. The sellout, I have no problem with what you're talking about.
Can I say something now? Please? Because
Hold on. Were you finished, Thunder? Were you finished?
No.
Yes, Thunder was.
Thunder wasn't finished. Go ahead, Thunder.
Like my you already know I'm an advocate for anybody that helping the black community. So I don't care about no Hebrew, none of that stuff. So the brother got my support. Hopefully he gets y'all support as well. I mean, he putting in the work. The organization is putting in the work. We can't cry about no black city plan, Reggie. And then when we got people implementing at least aspects of it, then we talking about his religion. That don't make no sense. So let's put together some sort of plan to help support him in this beautiful city of Atlanta. And that's it. Let's promote him. What's wrong with that?
Now we really got to investigate this organization. He's supporting it.
Other Reggie,
I don't support
is
religion.
not crying about the Black City Plan. The Black City Plan is already working.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be, but think about it. It's about majority populations, and what they did is based on the White City Plan, right? And the successes of the White City Plan and what we must do, but it's already working. It's already working.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Stupid.
Thank you, Thunder the Contrarian. Thank you. And I really appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
And I really appreciate you saying that capitalism is the best system ever. Although let's if we go back to people, if we go back to history and look, capitalism did not exist in the 17th century. But we're not going to debate that. One day I'd like to have a conversation with you one-on-one because I like picking your mind. And I understand that you like to go in the opposite. You will be what people would call the devil's advocate. Not that you're the actual devil's advocate, but you go against the grain.
No.
Whatever.
If you read the book, not 48 Laws, read the book, The Art of War. One of the, maybe two of those tenets involve, more than that, more than two, probably 3 or 4 involve taking the opposite approach, thinking like the enemy, right? You always want to. You can't, if you got some ops out there to think the way you thinking, you're gonna get shot every time. If you think the way they thinking, okay.
Yeah, but the problem with their belief is that
and then after that you should be better prepared for anything to come up.
Yeah, but Tanzan also said in that doubt everything. But you supposed to doubt everything, but you stand firm on capitalism. You have no doubt of capitalism. You say that it's the greatest and it's the best.
It's battle tested,
right? It's 300 years old.
It's battle tested.
It's 300 years is not battle tested. It's 300 years old.
Okay, what's the longest system of economics we got now? Socialism, right?
Well,
no.
Hold on.
The longest
is official as a name, but capitalism has been around for a while.
Forever.
Explain. No. Listen, what the tenets of capitalism is a free market system that everybody have opportunity to gain wealth.
You say that's only 300 years old?
No. That's only 300 years old.
Yeah, you tripping.
Prior to that, wealth was hereditary, meaning that persons who rule the land decided who has wealth.
Did Mansa Musa rule the land?
Yes.
Okay.
And he decided who had wealth in that land. He decided who were the pawns, who were the bishops, who were the rooks, who were the queens, and who were the knights. He ruled the board.
Islamist. He was an Islamist.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about his religion. I'm talking about what wealth was before.
Right, but the system was, in Africa moved to, they use Islam, but Islam is pretty much like, let's say, an oligarchy, right? So there's oligarchy, and then there is the oligarchy, then there's mercantilism, right? Then there's capitalism, and then there was socialism and communism, right? And then mixed in that is tools such as slavery. So if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But the kingship issue was
no, he was the king of Mali. I'm saying, did he rule Africa? Did he rule the entire West Africa?
No, he ruled where he was in charge of. Where he ruled. And when he ruled what he ruled, he decided who had power and who didn't have power. In a capitalistic organization, no individual should decide who have power, but who don't have power. But we can debate that in even this organization, that power is reduced to a significant few. That few persons control the wealth. It is no different than the serfdom. It is no different than the oligarchies that existed 100 years ago.
You agree with me? So the system is really oligarchy, and then capitalism never fulfilled what capitalism was supposed to be, because it was always controlled by the oligarchy, the rich and the
always.
So,
right,
Stupid, you're saying that somebody controls your ability to earn revenue? That's what you're telling me?
Yes.
Who stands in your way from making money right now?
You're not making. Listen, money is a unit of exchange.
Yes.
You are taxed.
No, currency is.
Right. Well, yeah, currency is a unit of exchange. You're absolutely right. And so money is a currency.
Yes, it's a form of currency.
All right, so thank you. So I wasn't wrong. But the illusion is capitalism, because it's never about a free society of being able to make money. You're taxed by the oligarchy, right?
No, okay. So you're saying that taxation limits capitalism?
Taxation.
No, I am saying, this is what I am saying. Let me say what I'm saying. I'm saying that the system is set up to allow certain amount of freedoms, and
illusions.
Not everybody has access to all the freedom. People like to tell you that. No, let me finish. Let me finish. All right, let me ask you this question: can everybody be rich in a capitalist system?
Yes, everybody can be rich. You have the ability to be rich.
You believe that everybody, that 100% of people can be rich?
Ability to be rich.
No, I never asked ability. I'm asking that. Would the system exist if everybody is rich?
You asked me, can everybody
I asked
be
it,
rich?
can everybody be rich?
Yes,
and you said
can be rich.
You have the ability. That's a different answer to the question.
Why?
That's a different answer. I asked the question, Kim, can everybody, meaning that everybody in the entire world, can they live in this system without the burden associated with poverty?
Absolutely not.
No.
Oh no. That ain't how they work.
Right? Because so systems are put in place to ensure that only a few people that allow the system to remain in
Oh,
balance
all
can
right.
be.
If
It is random. It is random.
I got you. We
It
got
is
300
no.
million.
Let me finish. You have 300 million people in the United States.
We got 300 million people in the United States. We
In
got
order to
how many
achieve a
billionaires?
balance,
How many
no. Let me say.
billionaires? How many
No. Let me
billionaires
finish.
do we have in the United States?
Say 10,000, and that's not true.
If those, it don't matter. If those
Yeah.
10,000 billionaires gave away all their money to all 300 million Americans, do we have the ability to be rich?
No,
No.
That's crazy.
No.
Hey,
because they will never do that.
Can I interrupt for one second?
Yes.
Judas
Yes.
Redemption. You said something about a gentleman saying that my book is pseudo. Tell him whenever he says my book is pseudo, tell him to point out where it's pseudo.
No, come on the panel.
Hold on. Because he actually said before that the book was one of the best books he's ever read. But because I don't deal with him on a personal level anymore, he's saying all this
pseudo. Oh,
yeah. So just be careful. But anyway, my brother, Kyle, come on, man, because I gotta go pick up Amir. It's raining. I have pretty much 17 more minutes. So if you would like to come on, my brother, and do your thing, come speak your mind. And everything is everything. I didn't know you was that Jamaican, man. Come on, you gonna come on here and cuss everybody out, bro? Come on, man.
He didn't curse.
Hey, that's my brother. Watch it. Leave everything alone, man. He's a good brother. He's a good brother. Leave him alone, fam. Oh, he said.
I kicked him off because it wasn't necessary.
Let me get Brother Lonnie. Brother Lonnie, what up? Come bring up your voice of reason today, man. You my number 2 voice of reason. Thunder is number 1. You number 2. Come on, man. Give us the voice of reason.
I mean, I'm just sitting back listening. I actually just walked through the door. Peace and blessings to everybody that's on the panel. Peace.
Peace.
Hey.
Oh, tap, Roger.
Somebody
You
can break foot and
approve of
one.
man system, right? In Atlanta. You would support that.
Everything is funny, man. We need to exchange numbers so we could call and cuss each other out in Jamaica.
Hey, that brother's cool, man. I like him.
That's my dude, man. That's my dude.
Black Lion, what you think about the presentation?
I thought it was good. Like I said, I thought I know that it seems like he's pushing a little bit on his religion, but it seems like he's doing some great work.
Yeah.
I just hope that once his organization starts to grow, the focus still is on what you're talking about: capitalism, economic power, and political power. And building an infrastructure for our people. I hope it stays that way and it doesn't fall back into trying to recruit people into Judaism.
Yeah.
Okay,
you said that yesterday. You said the Million Man March was recruiting for the nation.
Yeah, it was recruiting for the nation. I was there. That's what I saw.
I believe that too.
Well, if they're the organizers, the churches played a major role in it too. But I think Million Man March, the problem with it is Farrakhan has the greatest ideas, but he doesn't have people that follow through around. That's the problem.
Exactly.
That atmosphere could have been handled a lot better, Garfield. I mean, so much could have been done in that atmosphere. It was unbelievable, the people that were there.
Yeah,
Anyone that went to that march knows what I'm telling the truth. But unfortunately, it went left to Islam instead of doing exactly what I said, economic and political power. Had that been the focus, oh my God, there's no telling where our people would be today.
Let me ask you a question, right? You do know that was an ADOS march, though, right? They specifically wanted a million African Americans. You know that, right?
That's facts. That's fact.
Well, you know, everybody went anyway because, we so religious. We think like Jesus was coming back or something.
That was the beautiful thing about it, Garfield, that everybody showed up. Everybody.
You know the police was called twice, Thunder, at the Million Man March. Do you know why?
Because all these black people in the city, I called the police too.
No, it was a Chinese guy.
Thunder, Thunder, come on,
Hold on,
Thunder,
brother
come
law.
on, Thunder.
No, he means that, man. He means it.
Brother law. You know he's bullshit. Come on, man. You gonna fall for that. You gonna fall for that.
No, he's not.
Look at him laughing. He know what he's doing, man. Come on, I'm paying for this. This is what I'm paying for. Relax, man.
Come on, man.
Listen. There was 2 phone calls.
Brother, you got a million niggas in your city. We in Washington D.C. Something bound to happen, brother law. Man, you gotta get these niggas.
But nothing happened.
Can I finish my point?
Nothing happened.
That's brother law hotel, brother law. I know that was you.
Hotel.
Get to hear your voice. Get to hear your voice, my brother.
Let me hear Garfield, please.
Can I finish my point? The police was called twice. One, it was an Asian guy who made a false report. And when they realized it was a false report, they went back and arrested him. He made a false report about the Million Man March that there was some
beautiful thing.
Going on. So he got arrested for making a false charge against the people.
Beautiful.
I mean, I saw a brother step on brother's toes. They said, if this was yesterday or tomorrow, we'd be rumbling right now.
Facts. All kind of passes was given that day. Oh my God, man.
Man. Oh man, I gotta give a shout out to brother Joe at 127. He right there selling beef pie. He put me on when he saw I was making too much money. He's like, nah, bro, we don't need to sell no more. I was just going there selling shirts, buttons. I was just coming back, and every money I made, we split half and half. I was like, oh, I was caking that day. Oh, let me tell you something, man. What are they? This coconut
why y'all don't get Farrakhan?
Hold on. This coke. Let me see what this crazy ass Ramon saying. This coconut Garfield is secretly choosing Black history with his Equiana identity fascination, his NOI hating gatherer, his nigga brew expert. He does this coconut. I'm ending the show right now.
Right, it's funny.
All right, let's get Kyle, because they always say I want to end the show when Kyle jump on. So hurry up, Kyle.
No, I just wanted to hold on, Garfield. I just wanted to ask Thunder one question.
What's up, man?
Here we go.
It seems like you pushing forth the narrative of capitalist strong. Would you still keep that? Would you still keep that same ideology or mindset if you didn't live in Atlanta?
Oh yeah, why not?
On what basis?
On what basis? You look at the alternatives, right? You look at socialism, what it did in Africa. You look what it did in Europe. You look what not socialism, dictated authoritarianism. You look at that, what it did in Africa, what it did in all these other places. Then you look at socialism and communism, what it did in Europe, and then you say, then you compare it just opposed to how we live here.
We live under oligarchy.
What do you say?
We live under an oligarchy.
This is an oligarchy? Okay, cool. No problem. It's a capitalist system, though.
Yeah, you guys do realize that the Persian government system of a temple system is the same system Islam has today, right? And Arab countries. From the Persian time period. You guys do realize that, right? Where the money, tell them, Black Line.
Oh man, do I have to?
How Jerusalem became because of the Persians. The Persians
come on, Bill.
Jerusalem temple, the place where you collect money at. That was the money spot. You know when you have a bunch of drug dealers in the hood and they have a spot where they drop the money off at? That's what that's
a fact. That's definitely a fact. It is still practiced today in the Islamic community. He's absolutely right. And I'll debate anyone on that want to have a debate.
I'm a Muslim and I can concur with that.
Y'all want all the smoke.
Come on, I'll sure bring it because, I mean, we got primaries on that. We have discussions on that all the time. So it is what it is.
Right.
You know, it's no getting around it. And this is what I mean about us having a structure of our own. So when these issues come up and we see things like this, now we say, oh, we want to help our people in our community. We want to help the Africans that's still being enslaved today by the Arabs. We want to help them. Mm-hmm. You can't do that until you learn how the game is played. You can't do that until you learn this history that Garfield is speaking about. You're not going to be able to fight against anything until you learn what's in the fight. Once you understand what your fighting atmosphere in the arena that you're in, now you can fight back. But unfortunately, our people are too focused on someone coming from the heavens to do it for us. It's like we think, well, what's the use of doing all this work to change our situation when some great deity is going to come down and fix it for us? We got to really get out of that mindset. We got to. That mindset is more dangerous than anything that we face. And I'm going to say this. What everybody on this panel do right now, everyone on this panel who participates in these conversations, who teach our people the truth about religion, who stand up against misinformation, we're doing far more for our people than anyone that's handing them a bottle of water, a sandwich here and there, and a jacket in the freezing cold that's not going to really help them in the first place. We are doing far. You want to talk about somebody that's doing something for their people? This panel alone is doing far more than anybody that's pushing religion. Anybody, I don't care who it is, and I don't care what organization they run. This panel right here alone is doing far more than you could ever do, because we're getting our people to understand that if we want to do something and we want to have something in this world, we must do it for ourselves and not wait for some spook god to come down and save us. We must fight for ourselves. And I don't care if the god is from Kemet. I don't care if the god is from West Africa. I don't care if it's Yaqub. I don't care what god it is. That god is not coming to do a damn thing for us. We got to stand up and do it for ourselves. Go ahead, sir.
They don't believe.
Snaps in the air.
They don't really believe that. BLS. They don't really believe that a God is going to come down and that's their. They don't believe that. The how can I say, the converts, they believe that, right? But the people who run those societies, they don't believe that. That's for the sheep.
I agree with you. I agree with you, brother Reggie. You're absolutely right when it comes to that, because I've seen that up close. A lot of these people that go to these seminaries know the truth.
Right.
When they go to learn about their God concepts, they learn the truth and they don't believe it, but they used us as sheep to further their agendas and not ours. We have to further our own agenda, and our agenda should be our children being educated properly. We have more discussions about economics at the table when we're sitting down with our children, and we understand political power and how to get it. That should be that should be our so-called God, not something from a man-made book that has nothing to do with reality.
That's why I call them converts.
Black Lion. I concur with you 110%.
Hold on,
you also
go. Can Kyle go, please? Because we got 6 more minutes. Because he gonna say I always end the show when he come on. So
okay,
please let him speak, because I'm not gonna hear the end of it.
What's up, Kyle the Great? What's going on, my brother? Go ahead.
What's up, VLS? Peace to everybody on the chat. Peace to the Deca Squadites.
Space.
Deca Squadites, whatever we're gonna call ourselves at this point in time. But I just think that this is I think it pains me to hear these arguments constantly. We find ourselves constantly talking about the what ifs in the world, but not on the reality. The reality is that we live in a society that is capitalistic. That capitalistic society provides upward mobility regardless of social class. Yeah. Now, and for me personally, I see that as the great equalizer and the way out of an oppressive society, because you now are moving upward based on your own efforts and not based on what's given to you through these different like equal opportunity employment opportunities and things. That's where they're looking for the best qualified employee, and it behooves us to be those best qualified individuals, whether it be starting your own business, working a corporate America job, or whatever we're doing. But we got to be on the forefront of modern technology, and we got to be active in these fields that are more profitable. And that's what capitalism kind of forces people to do. And it sounds as if we're fighting against our current reality instead of addressing that reality. And by doing so, it's going to always put us in a back burner position because we're being reactive. We're not proactive in our approach to financial security. We're not proactive in any of our approaches, really. Matter of fact, you can look at our religions and you can tell they're all antiquated. They're all 3,000, 2,000, 5,000 years old, have nothing to do with reality. And we're looking at these religious texts for some type of assistance in our modern day society. Those people that lived in their times, they were egalitarian. These people were socialists. We don't have to. We're not any of those things in our environment. And so, in order to achieve success in our current environment, we must first adapt to our environment. Like BLS said, you gotta know the rules to the game. That way, you can be a good player in said game. The game is life, and we don't understand what it is. And we wish and we pray and we have these discussions constantly about what we could change, but we can't change the society that we live on. We have to adapt to it, and we have to perfect ourselves within said society. And I land my plane there.
Pushback.
You sure you want to land your plane?
Yeah, because pushback.
Hold on, Reggie. Hold on, please. Rob on. What's up? Troublemaker. What's up?
Okay,
he ain't on here. He's not on here, bro.
While he's coming back, I got a pushback. So part of this system called capitalism, which was really an oligarchy, right, is because we coming out of slavery, right? We did more with less than any group of people in our time, right? Reconstruction was a flim flam. So but coming out of slavery, what we gained, we got it taken away, right? We got it taken away. And today it doesn't matter. You can be a great innovator, right? And another company will sue the brakes off of you, right? And win in court because the system is rigged, and you'll lose everything. Individuals can move toward capitalism, but the problem is we need a group something that we haven't defined for ourselves. So these other groups, the Jews and the Italians and the Irish and the Mormons, they have a group concept that takes away from individualistic capitalists to make their way. So it's just a minor pushback. Capitalism is good for individuals, sure. You could be the best and brightest, but you could be like Reginald Lewis. Reginald Lewis was on the top of the world. I mean, as far as where he made it with his own mental abilities, but all of a sudden he gets cancer, right? It could be taken away. So I'm just a minor pushback, Khazriel. Just a minor pushback.
No, I respect that.
I don't really have a pushback to what he's saying, but I'll say this to what you're saying, Brother Reggie. You're absolutely right. Our people have done some great things in this country under the circumstances. This is a fact. We have flashes of greatness all over this country. We just watched a black man take a black college and have it put on ESPN. I've never seen a black college game on ESPN before. And we just seen that with our own eyes. We had the power to galvanize together and put a black man at the highest seat in the world, or Barack Obama. Maybe it didn't work out for us the way we wanted it to, but we did that. We have glimpses of power from the time we've been here off of slave ships until this day. What we don't have is control and supreme power. You know what supreme power is, Brother Reggie? Do you know what that is? That's having to change the channels on your TV.
That's what Yahweh Jesus, man. They're talking about supreme power. You get into religion now, man.
No, I'm getting into reality. This is what the reality I'm talking about. Garfield, you have to monitor your child from watching TV because there's certain images on TV you might not want him to see. And it's not because of anything anybody black is doing. It's because of who is in control and what they do. You walk down the street and you see billboards and nothing but people who have the type of power I'm talking about, the ones who founded this nation.
Yeah.
That's power. It's power that you when you drive down the street and you have to worry about if some police officer is going to bust on you because your tags is not right. That's power. It's power when you have the ability to control the highest positions in this country. When you have a mostly all white panel making the most major rules to go by in this country. One of them is sending our money to Israel because of what someone else did to their people. We pay them over $4 billion each and every year, and that comes out of our pocket. That's power. Because if we had the power, we wouldn't do that. So yeah, capitalism is good for those who are in control of capitalism. Remember that.
What you call it? Rob on. You want to say something, bro? Because I got to get out of here.
I am now a reformed black Republican. You Negro sound crazy as fuck to me.
That's my dog.
You sound like you crying. A bunch of blackity black sitting up here crying, talking about the ultimate power and all of this nonsense you're talking about. Instead of talking about the stuff that you could actually change and what you could really do. It's a lot of I have a dream speeches and what power really looks like. You guys are no wonder you are gonna get replaced by the fourth new industrial age. That's what we entering. And you niggas talking about Israel and all this other shit. We are on the cusp of the fourth industrial age, and you are far away from tech. You are so far away that it doesn't even make sense.
Lynn,
See, this is what happens when you start to really believe that you're the real Yakub.
Yo, I don't know about that. Y'all love that religion shit. You love it. You love it. You love it. You love it.
I'm out of here. Rob on, I'm out of here. Peace and love, man. I gotta go. Peace. I'll be back live at probably 6 o'clock. All right. Peace and love, man. We out of here.
They love it. Blackity blacks. Blackity black black black.